with so much anxiety. Has historically been, she's a senior, she's historically been a honor roll student, and she has 4 Fs right now because she hates coming to school wearing a mask. It stresses her out so much it is causing her to drop in grades. The the NBC Montana did a story on dropping grades all across the nation. I don't know what it looks like in Flathead County, but I would really like somebody to give me that information and tell me how I can get it, showing what our grades are this first quarter of 2020 versus first quarter of 2019, and see if we're having the same problem of dropping grades, because if we are, then you guys aren't doing your job, because the students are here to learn. And masking them and causing all this other stress on them is not helping them learn. It needs to be a good learning environment. And what is going on here isn't, because at least what I see in my family, grades are dropping. You know, you canceled your last board meeting.
Time is up.
I get 6 minutes a month. You took 3 minutes away from me, and that's a shame, because I had plenty of other stuff to talk about.
Can the volume turn on? Before we continue with public comment, just a note, there's a business class that's listening to our meeting tonight with dual class credits, and they'll be taking notes and observing and writing a report in class tomorrow, just for everybody's information. Any other comments from the public? Anybody online that wants to provide any comments? We'll wait about 30 seconds to see if we get any responses online.
Is it all right if I take my wife's 3 minutes?
No.
Sitting right here.
No. Each individual has 3 minutes to speak. And I'd appreciate you putting your mask on, please. If not, we'll recess and ask you to be removed.
Are you talking to me?
Mask over the nose and mouth.
Are you talking to me?
No. I'm talking to the lady right there.
You just pulled yours off. You left yours down for about 20 seconds. How come I can't?
Okay, we don't have any comments online, so we will close. Oh, we do have a comment?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, from Jackson Lure. Will the school board stance on masks in school change if we get a different government directive regarding masks? Okay, that's a public comment. Any other public comments before we close the public comment section?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, public comments are now closed. We are moving on to section number 6, recognition and student reports. And student reports, we go to Flathead High School.
And they're doing a board presentation tonight.
Okay.
So it's Glacier. Morgan Hernandez. So Flathead's going to do their presentation after Morgan.
Oh, okay. So then, got it. So Morgan, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of an update on what we're doing in specifically student council right now. A little bit of holiday giving going on. We're actually really busy. We're planning on taking, student council's planning on taking like a half day next Friday of just getting everything finished up. So a couple things we're doing is, the biggest one being the giving tree, and we have tags, that we received from the Salvation Army. I want to say we have 200 tags, and we only have about 40 left, and the tree has only been up for about a week, so that's a huge, thank you to our students, because every year we've been able to get all those tags filled, which is really awesome, and it's a really great way to just give back to the community during the holidays. And then also the food drive, we just started that this week. Food drive for Glacier usually looks a little rough, but I think that this year students are a little bit more motivated because we're doing prizes. We're giving away a couple of hydro flasks and some Chick-fil-A gift cards, so, food motivation. And then I'm also, personally, and my partner, Kedzie Crawford, we are, able with student council funds to purchase 40 pairs of socks to donate to the Veterans Home in Columbia Falls. And we will be delivering those on the 17th. And what we do is part of what we're doing, actually this Friday, is we are writing, little notes on it. Just hey, thank you for your service, thank you for all you've done on behalf of Glacier High Student Council and whoever writes it, Morgan Hernandez. And then also the last thing that we are able to do this year is adopt a family, which we adopted 2 families, and we had an awesome budget of $500 per family, and those are 2 families that are within Glacier that were completely anonymous, and we received from Chris Weeks. He is our head counselor, and so we got a bunch of gifts for them, and then we were able, the counselors will be delivering those. And in the past years, we've done a lot more, but just because of COVID this year, it's a lot harder to, get back to the community, so we're doing as much as we can. And a little quarantine update. So last time I was here talking to you guys, we had almost 300 kids quarantined, and it is so much better. I have, my classes are full. I'm now having, my normal, 15 to, from 15 to 30 kids in my class, where before it was 5 and 6 kids in every single one of my classes, which was really hard to see, but I mean, it is what it is, we're doing as much as we can, if it means wearing a mask to school, then that's what we have to do to stay in and keep sports going, then that's what we do. And I think that our students and staff are doing a really great job with that. Questions?
So you're surviving wearing a mask?
It doesn't bother me.
Now, when you're off campus, how often do you wear a mask?
Whenever I go into a public place. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. It did at first, but now that we wear them for 7 hours a day, I just am used to it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, okay. Flathead High School building update, item number 7.
Right. Well, thank you for letting me speak briefly about what is happening here at Flathead. Okay, there. Good. So at Flathead High School, our core purpose is to ignite a passion for learning so that students thrive at school and succeed in life. That is our goal. That is why we come to work every single day in this building. This year, our school theme is Find Your Brave. We thought it was particularly appropriate for this particular school year and the challenges that we have had. This is a school year unlike any other we've experienced before. And so we worked hard to stay aligned, keep that true north in mind, stay focused on our core purpose. So tonight I wanted to talk to you about 3 different things. I wanted to talk about some COVID realities, and I wanted to talk about culture of learning, and finally the Flathead family. So we'll start with COVID realities. This passage picture was in August. And if you notice how happy our students are, obviously they're opposed there in front of our sign, but how happy they are to be going to school and wearing their masks. Awesome. Homecoming came early for us this year in September. And where we would normally have a gym packed to the gills with students in bright school colors and a band and cheer and all kinds of fun and excitement, we had games during lunch. And what you see here is our Spiceball Tournament. And so this was a dress-up day. We were still able to dress up, fortunately, in spite of COVID. And so this was thrown back to the 70s Thursday. And so you see some students here during lunch playing spikeball, wearing their masks. It was a lot of fun. Veterans Day, we were not able to invite veterans into our building like we did the previous year. We couldn't do any of that, and so we created video presentations. We interviewed a number of veterans from the Flathead Family. Here you see our junior class of student council representatives. An image that's taken from their segment of the video presentation. Here they are. Pretty awesome. But I felt like this didn't totally capture kind of like where we are right now as a school during COVID. So today, I went out and about, and I just took some photos. And so here you see, this is a Spanish class. This class in particular is challenging because it's a small room. Spanish classes are pretty full, especially Spanish 1 and 2. And so here you see Professor Rocky, Kirk Johnston, our Spanish teacher. And we see all the kids, there they are in their masks. Right? They're just kind of going along with it. Here's Lisa Thompson, math teacher, and she's working one-on-one with a student during her structured study hall, helping her out with math. There they are, wearing their masks.
Is that oversized calculator work that's on the wall?
That's a really good question. Okay, so the other thing to point out is picture on the right-hand side, overhead projector. Lisa Thompson, though, is one of those. Uses the overhead still. And our last picture, this is Biomed 2. And so they were debriefing after a day of labs they had done the previous day. And so the teacher, you don't see in this picture, but she was leading the class. So kids had their labs pulled up on the Chromebooks, and they were debriefing. They did a lab on vision. But there you go. There they all are in math. They're not quite as happy and as excited as that first picture was, right? But, I mean, this is it. This is what our day is like. This is our world. And nobody likes to wear masks, but we do it. We do it to stay open. We do it to prevent the spread of COVID. I've done a lot of contact tracing in my school, and I can tell you, the masks help us tremendously with spread. So there's our reality. That's really what it looks like. Come by anytime, of course, visit our school, and this is what you would see. A little bit of COVID data for you. I know Bill will be presenting later on the district, but this is just a month by month. What it's looked like for our school. And September started with a bang for us. October was nice and quiet. November surpassed September, and man, 8 days into December, and look at that. Yikes. So, I don't like the word spike, but I always use the word bubble. There's a little bubble going back here. It's about a week after Thanksgiving, right? And so to be expected, for sure. On the staff side, these are staff positive cases, so you'll notice kind of a similar trend, right? October, man, we rocked it in October. We really did. That's what it looks like month by month. What we have active, this is high threat. We have never had 12 active at the same time. But here we have it. We have one current staff case that is active. And on the quarantine side, 41 quarantines. Now that's a low number, right, for the number of positive cases. But fortunately, a majority of those 12 positives were all during break, right? So there was no contact tracing to be done because that student was deemed to be contagious while they were at home. So that's the good news, that's the good part. And 41 kids in quarantine, and we have one staff in quarantine right now. So that is our COVID reality. One other little bit with the COVID reality, and you have to bear with me with this little bit of a sidebar. I want to talk briefly about ledger art. You might be wondering what does ledger art have to do with COVID, but I will get there. Ledger art is a form, a genre of Native American art, and I love this form. It is based off of the idea that in years past, Native Americans did drawing and painting on whatever paper, whatever canvas they could find, and oftentimes used ledger paper, whatever was available. And so you see, this is a famous Blackfoot ledger artist, John Isaiah Pepion, and his piece here is on Virginia City, some kind of a, I don't know, training log or something like that. So that's the form. And so ledger art is one of the, oftentimes if you've seen ledger art, it's very colorful. I mean, it's just beautifully done, beautifully done. And so I bring ledger art up because in drawing one of our new teachers, Stephen Miller, who's our .5, he's a half-time art teacher. In drawing one, they did ledger art this fall. And I have to share this one piece with you. Kara Whitty is the artist, and if you look at her ledger art, look at what she used, the Flathead Family Health Department, and I go to school today, right? And so she used that as her ledger and created this beautiful work of art. And I think, you know, if you were in an IB English Lang and Lit class, you would analyze this, and there's a lot of layers to this, right? And I love this piece because it speaks to what school is like during the COVID pandemic. The COVID part is always underneath the surface. It's always there in the background. It's there. We can't escape it. We don't like it, but it's always there. But we carry on. She created a really nice piece of art out of that. Very colorful. She did a great job. And so in spite of COVID, we carry on. So I thought this piece was pretty emblematic. The next thing I want to touch on very briefly is culture of learning. As a principal, I feel like one of my jobs is to help all of us grow together as a staff and get better in our craft. And so one thing that I really love doing is book studies. And we're doing a book study coming up. Chris Giovanni is an author. She's a classroom teacher. One of the things I really like about her work is she's an actual teacher, practicing educator, and has lots of really good adolescent literacy strategies. But this book in particular is on assessment, on how can we better use formative assessment to gauge what our kids know, what we need to do differently, what our next steps are as teachers, and applicable face-to-face learning and within a remote setting, if that happens to be our future. So I'm really excited about this book. Invite any of you would be welcome to join our book study. Our book studies tend to be very diverse. It's usually like one person from a number of different content areas, which provides very rich discussion and good professional development. So just wanted you to know that that was coming up. My third topic tonight is the Flathead Family. And I wanted to just touch on a couple of things there. Pretty proud of this next slide. Yesterday was the first day of winter activities. Athletics had their first practices yesterday. Speech and debate, you know, they've been going a little bit longer than that. They had their first speech meet virtually last weekend. They're very proud of them. But I'm really proud of this group. And these are girls wrestlers. New to the Montana High School Association, girls wrestling. And so the 15 girls here, and they're missing a couple. I say have around 20 girls going out for wrestling, which is super exciting. And so we're proud to be blazing new trails. when you think about the whole Title IX piece, right, good opportunities for female students. And some of these schools have been wrestling last year, and, they had to wrestle boys, which, kind of challenging, right? But nonetheless, we have girls who really love wrestling, and so they wrestled boys last year, but this year they have their own sport, their own girls wrestling, and so we're just super excited to see where they're gonna go. Another part of the Flathead family, I am big on partnerships with our schools that are within our school community. And one of our partner schools is Peterson Elementary. And this year, this has never happened before. I've done student council as the advisor for 10 years, and I've never, ever had this happen before. I typically have, 30-some student council kids, and I've got a smattering of kids from all of the different, remember, we have 9 different partner schools at Flathead that feed into our high school. And we usually have, like 1 or 2 from a number of different schools. Well, this year, I have 11 kids who went to Peterson on student council, which is pretty awesome. And so we started what we called the Peterson Project. And as you know, schools, we're really not letting outsiders into schools, right, because of COVID. And that, understandably so. But I reached out to Tracy Ketchum and I said, I've got these 11 kids. It's unheard of that we have so many Peterson alums, and they really want to connect. And so we are going over and helping out outside at recess at Peterson School. And so we had our first visit last week, and the kids are hilarious, these high schoolers, because we went over to Peterson to kind of get the lay of the land, and they were just having so much fun. You're like, can we go walk around? Can we check it all out? And, because of all of their fun memories that they had there. So partnerships with our schools that are within the Flathead family is really important to me, and I'm excited to take on the Peterson project this year. We also have service project season, right? As the Glacier folks talked about the service projects going on. It's a great time of year for that. And we have always done an angel tree, and that's where we collect toys for young children, elementary age children, that are given. But something new that I started last year was the Brave Angel tag. And so what I thought about, some people really want to buy toys, right, for little kids, and that's great. But there are a lot of kids who are right in our schools, right in our high school, that have needs and could use some support at Christmas time. And so we do a little of both. We do angel tree tags and we do Brave Angel tags. And this was our haul, just after, this was as of yesterday, stuff rolling in. It's just so neat to see the generous spirit that we have in our school. And I reached out to counselors and different staff to find out, okay, help us identify some kids who could use a little Christmas cheer. And so I just wanted to share a couple with you. Student number 1, a family is living at the Outlaw. The student's attendance has improved greatly from previous years, and he is almost passing all of his classes. His favorite color is black. Student number 2, Dad's work has been severely impacted by COVID. She and Dad are living in a camper on grandparents' property. Not ideal, but they have access to power and water. She likes to write, draw, and work on cards with her dad. Student number 3, lives with Dad and will be the first in her family to graduate from high school. Finances are a struggle and no internet access at home. I've encouraged her to utilize the Heart Market. Could use a nice planner, colored pens, and food. And finally, student number 4, single mom, they live in a camper on the grandparents' property. This student loves eggs and hunting. Could really use a new pair of shoes or an FHS hoodie. It means a lot to be able to provide support to people in need in our school, and that's really important to me as a leader. And it's been a good project. So as you leave today and walk by that tree, we have 2 trees with tags. One of them is right outside our door. I wanted to end with this thought. The glass, half full. I shared this at our most recent staff meeting. I gave out drinks, glasses to all of the staff as they came into our most recent staff meeting. And we talked about this, right? We've all heard this before. Is your glass half empty or is it half full? And of course, we would all say, no, I focus on the positive. I believe it's half full, right? We all say that. A couple of weeks ago, I was complaining about our attendance rate. It's hovered in the 80s. A year ago, we were at 95% attendance rate. We were rocking it with attendance. And this year, we had a stint of low 90s, and then we've been in the 80s. And so I was talking to Brad Holloway, assistant principal, and I said, oh, gosh, last week our attendance was 83%. That's terrible. God. It's so frustrating to have that bad of attendance compared to last year. But Brad said, ours is pretty good. We have almost 85% of kids coming to school. That's pretty good. And I had to stop and think about it. And then I went, well, yeah, I guess, last spring, our attendance rate was 0. Right? It was 0. We had nothing. Right? So 83%, we have to be happy with that. And you have to understand that right now, that's doing the best. So I shared with you COVID realities, a bit about our culture of learning, and about the Flathead Family. It's been a great year. I wish I could stand up here and show you all kinds of great data about student achievement and all that, but I can't. But we're getting through, and as every week goes on, I'm just super excited that we stay open, that our kids are coming to school and they're learning. So thank you for all that you do to support our schools and keep us rolling day in and day out. Any questions for me? Yes.
Is that 17%, does that include quarantines, and are those students, if a student's in virtual class, does that, not the REC, but, keeping up with the coursework from quarantine?
Out of our face-to-face students.
Okay.
So the attendance rate there, and it would include a student who's absent for any reason.
Right, but if they're absent and still doing the work online, are you counting them as absent, or?
Yeah, these would be kids who are not physically present in class. Yeah,
okay.
Many of them are keeping up and joining Google Classroom and watching the videos that the teacher made, right? They are.
Oh, so they're still engaged.
But they're not here in the building. So great question.
Ursula, go ahead, and then we'll get.
Yeah, you can have it.
Okay.
Ursula first, and then.
Are any other AA schools offering girls wrestling? Or do they have to compete against themselves for this year?
Well, there will be some competition. It's going to be an all-class state tournament, though.
Okay.
Because there's not
So anybody
enough in any of the different classifications. We're super excited, though, If we make it to the state tournament,
That's very
we'll be
exciting.
super jacked about how that's going to hopefully pan out for us.
Morgan.
So I've had my teachers quarantined, but not because of a positive case. So how does that work? Like, do students in the class have to get quarantined, or
If a staff member is positive,
if it's let's say my history teacher is positive, then would I have to quarantine because I'm in the same classroom as them? Or?
well, what they look at is how close in proximity you would have been to that teacher. And, we really haven't had teachers that test positive and cause quarantines for kids, because teachers are pretty mindful about, keeping 6 feet apart and keeping, fewer than 15 minutes, right? So my one picture of Lisa Thompson working with a kid in math, she only sat with that student for like 5 minutes and then, let the student get to work. So staff has been pretty good about sure that they don't put kids into quarantine. You know, we have enough kids in quarantine, we don't need to add to that. So that's a great question.
So in the biology class, I noticed the students were looking at Chromebooks and laptops, and it made me wonder, it used to be that you'd carry a bag full of books to school, and now do you carry a bag full of books and a laptop and a Chromebook? Or do you carry a bag with just a laptop or just a Chromebook?
Well, a lot of students just carry that laptop, right, that technology. There's still some subject areas that use textbooks, right? And so, you know, you always know when you have a student, you know, you got a heavy backpack there, the kid's probably in math and biology, some of them, you know. So it's usually a mixed bag, and it's kind of been an interesting evolution because kids don't tend to use their lockers nearly as much as they used to, right? We have some kids that never use a locker at all because they, you know, they can fit what they have in their backpack, in part because there's fewer textbooks. Yeah, great question.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, now we're on to old business, and Bill gets to update us on our statistics.
So as you are aware, every week the website gets updated. I go through the data from all of the different buildings, typically on Wednesday afternoon. It's updated by 3:30, and then it's put onto the website Thursday morning or Wednesday evening sometime. Yesterday evening, I went through and updated it just so today we could kind of talk real numbers about what's happening in the schools. So you can see, you know, currently this is the positive cases as of last night in all of our school buildings where kids attend and teachers are at. 27 active cases, 284 total for the year for students, 6 staff members currently. With 95 total. It gives you the breakdown of all of the different schools, where they're at. As you go through this and look at this and see the quarantine page as well, I continue to look at the data and know that it kind of fluctuates depending on where they're at. One building will be hot, you know, as other buildings are not. And then all of a sudden it's hot in another building and not. And certainly we watch those times when there's a lot of things occurring in a building to see, you know, who's getting quarantined, how many are getting quarantined, of those kids that are being quarantined, you know, are they staying healthy, are they not? For the most part, we still feel that quarantine kids are staying healthy when they're in quarantine. There have been some cases where, you know, we would say that more than likely they probably got sick because of what happened in school. In the big picture, though, not too many. A lot of those happen in activities as opposed to being in the classroom, which I guess in my standpoint is understandable as much as you can be understanding to the virus. We also continue to, as a school district, when you see that chart that compares us to the Valley, we still have a pretty flat trend within our schools and our district as the Valley continues to rise. It is anticipated as the Valley rises, you know, we can certainly work our tails off to make sure we're doing the things to keep the virus from spreading, but we would see more cases and more cases become evident within our schools. Ultimately, we want to be able to keep everybody as safe as they can and wear masks and try to keep social distance and those things to keep everybody safe. And, you know, I go out into the school buildings, I see everybody out there. Today I was in 5 different school buildings and they all look great as far as, you know, obeying by the standards that we have in place and doing the things necessary to keep everybody safe. You know, so in general, you know, I believe I myself and we, I think, are pretty pleased at what's happening within our schools. We appreciate the fact that we're willing to stay open You know, I know a lot of communities, if they had a case or two, they would say, we're done for 2 weeks. And, if there was an evidence of spread within our buildings, I think that would be different, but there just continues to be, a place that's fairly safe, for our students and children. Anybody have any questions? First one.
I saw that the teacher percentage is a little higher, the high school is a little bit less than that, but higher than elementary school. As schools are open, as we're open, as healthcare providers are looking at this, does it look like younger kids are less contagious? What is it about that? Is it more activities? Is it more time? Do the people that you're talking to, are they making?
I think it depends on the month I talk to them. Because as you continue to talk to them, as you continue to read the different things, you know, at the beginning of this, they said, children are not carriers, you're not gonna have to worry about it. And then you get into it a little bit further and they go, oh, hold on, they are carriers and they're, you know, it's in their nasal passages and you gotta be careful. And now you get into kind of this part now, and they're saying, yeah, they're carriers, but we really don't know if they really transmit it very much. So, you know, it's all over the board. It's hard, it's tough, because even in the medical profession, as we stated before, depending on what doctor you talk to, depends on the answer you get. So
we still don't really know.
Yeah, I would say that that's fairly safe to say.
Kind of that a little bit.
Right. Cool.
So I got a question about those quarantine numbers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a total and then a percentage. And I was wondering if the same student has to quarantine 3 times. Does that increase the total by 3 or by 1?
Typically by 3, if they are 3 separate quarantines.
All right.
You know, so if he was in November and was quarantined, and then, you know, in January, or he came back to school and then had to be again, he would be in there twice.
All right.
So sometimes you can say that it's a representation of a same student 2 or 3 times. You know, a time when that might not happen is if they're in quarantine, and then they go on this chart as a close contact, so it's this chart, but then within that quarantine, they become positive. I would take them off this quarantine part and put them over on the positive part, because I don't want him necessarily represented in 2 when ultimately he became positive. So there are some times when, you know, they'll be out of one and into the other, and then basically if there's more than one, it's that separation of time.
Well, I was just looking like at that 53.8%. And thinking that's like half of the student body, but
you know, well, as numbers go, you know, so that is Glacier High School. So as numbers go, Glacier High School could say, you know, with the number of quarantines we've had, that represents about half of our students this year. It doesn't mean that necessarily half of them, but I would say that it's probably close, because I don't think the representation of, you know, multiple students with multiple quarantines is necessarily that high, although they're in there.
The other piece to consider is that the current student enrollment includes our students who are in the REC.
Oh, really?
Because we get calls from county health department, hey, we need to contact Grace so-and-so, and it's like, oh, well, they're in or they're already in remote.
So they're considered to be kind of.
They get included in our counts of positive cases, not necessarily quarantines. But yeah, so there's, yeah.
And then going back to even Morgan's question, she's got another one, look at her back there. You know, when she talks about teachers, her question happens a little bit more at the elementary level. You know, an elementary teacher is far more engaged than, you know, you look at a kindergarten classroom and they're with each other all the time. You know, so teachers at the elementary level, will take some students out with them, depending on the makeup of their class and what they're doing, not so necessarily much at the high school.
And we have had some classes and programs that Aspire and our life skills classes in the elementary that we've had to quarantine the whole class. And that's just safety precaution, and we do, you know, at that point, when we communicate with parents, it's like, hey, we're going remote, for this time. I think one of the game changers for us is the change in the quarantine rule. You know, going to 10 days, at a maximum, 7 with a negative test after day 5, which I think finally is a recognition that, you know, with the mask and, you know, the data now shows and the research is showing that, you know, the likelihood of transmission and converting at day 10 is less than 1%. If you're watching your distance, if you're wearing a mask, if you're washing your hands, doing those things. So that's going to be huge for the duration of the quarantines, both for staff and students.
Morgan?
Okay, so that's kind of just like totally gone right over my head when you were talking, but, so like, let's say I tested positive and then I had to go quarantine for 14 days, and then I come back for 3 days, and then all of a sudden, like, this person sitting next to me gets quarantined, and then I have to like, drive to quarantine again, even though they say you can't, like, get it.
So here's how it works. If you are positive, you only have to go 10 days. And then after your 10 days is over, you have a 90-day window where you would not have to quarantine. So they say, and the medical research says that within that 90-day window, after you've been a positive case, the likelihood of you contracting again is not very good. So they give you that 90-day window. After that 90 days, they're not sure if you would get it or not. So after the 90 days, if you sat by somebody, then you would be quarantined.
Okay, because I had it in June, and my teachers were telling me that I couldn't get quarantined because, like, for like, the first couple weeks of school, because I was still on that 90-day frame, and that's true.
Fabulous.
The teachers always tell you the truth, don't they? You're subject to harassment if you ask questions, Morgan.
Any more questions for Bill?
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, Tracy, substitute update.
So, this is another success story, that we're really excited about. And I have to say, Michelle's, presentation was amazing. I mean, just even with what we're dealing with in COVID, still being innovative and coming up with amazing ideas, I thought that was great. So, we do have a lot to celebrate. We implemented the substitute bonus system, stipend system, hazard pay system, whatever we're calling it now. Back in November, we started it on November, or we implemented it in November, and then we retroed it back to the beginning of the year. We still are running at about 187 subs, and so on average, we run about 350 in our district. So we're still, you know, a little bit less or over half, but we are filling our classes, or we're filling our jobs. So we had the Monday after a holiday is a very difficult day to fill positions, and we were able to fill 100% of them. Our Mondays and Fridays consistently are at least 95% filled now. So even though our sub pool is small, it is mighty, and they are very motivated to help support us. And not only because of the additional benefit, but because they believe in what we're doing and they believe in keeping the schools open. We have 2 people that worked almost 58, they worked 56 days out of the 58-day quarter. And I thought that was incredible. I'd love to be able to bring them here at some point in time, especially our top subs, to have you meet them at some time and be able to ask them what it's like to go sub in our schools. But 4 people did earn the 80% plus, which was a significant amount. We had 32 people at 50, and we did have a lot of people that were almost at 50 as well, 50%, and then 41 earned 25%. So the total investment on keeping our doors open is $17,500. And for me, that was a huge benefit, just to be able to keep our doors open, our students active in the classes, and we couldn't have done it without our subs. And I want to also pay special tribute to Bree Eaton, because she is really doing a fantastic job as well, filling those positions. and our office managers as well. So our office managers work really hard in cooperation with them to try to get this puzzle put together every morning, before 7. So, but fantastic program. I hope, that we could possibly look at this as maybe a longer term, program that may go beyond COVID, but again, we always have to put that in the bucket with all of the rest of the budget items to see if we have enough money, but, really incredible, benefit, I felt. Any questions?
Lance has a question, Jeff. It's on your sheet.
Oh, thank you. Let's see, Lance, will that benefit be paid out of CRF funds?
So this semester it will. And then the next one will be paid out of ESSER funds. So that's the reason why we kind of broke them a little bit different. This truly isn't based on semester, dates. Our semester, I think, ends on January 28th, of this year, but we ended it, on November 30th so that we could make sure this first round, is paid through CRF funds.
Yeah, I always have questions too, Morgan. After we put out the communication to the community that said that our numbers were staying kind of similar as the community was going up, did you have any more people, like, decide they were open to being subs? Like, did that make a difference with the sub pool, or are the people that were using the same ones that we kind of had since the beginning?
So we've had some people that were, a little bit, hesitant in the beginning come forward and go ahead and sub after they did see the numbers, but not very many. You know, most of our subs are retirees that just, you know, don't want to take that extra risk. But the amount of subs that we've been able to recruit, through this program and just through Facebook and everything else, I feel like we're the, in terms of all the other AA's, we're sitting a lot better than they are. Some of them don't even have any subs, so it really is a benefit. It's been fantastic, so I really want to thank you guys. This was a huge, huge benefit. I do think that the return on investment was fantastic.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Woo! Yay!
Okay, next item is Micah talking about the Ffcra leave update.
Yeah, so, we have been, doing our best to track, Ffcra, leave, which can be, accessed by an employee if they are experiencing symptoms of COVID, if they have a child who can't go to school because their school closed, if they're quarantined, if they test positive. So that was a federal leave provision. And so to date, we've had 261 employees who've accessed Ffcra leave. And what the pie chart is representing, and I'm sorry, the font is really small on there, in the blue, those were people who were able to work remotely. So I got quarantined, I'm perfectly healthy, I can work remotely, I'm gonna log into my class, and I'm gonna teach from the computer. We still have subs in the building and in those classrooms, but we had, and I can't read that percentage on there, Cali, what is it? This one right here. 23% of our staff who had to access Ffcra leave were able to go 100% remote and continue to provide educational services for our students. The red number is 147 people who were able to either work remotely part of the time, so intermittently, and also accessing Ffcra leave. So, for example, a teacher gets quarantined on Sunday night at 10 o'clock, they are not ready to just jump in and start teaching a class. Like, I need a day or two to get all my stuff together. And so we've had a pretty good percentage of people, 56%, who were able to at least access some of their work remotely. And then the 53, that's 20% who are unable to work remotely. So keep in mind, this is not just teachers. This is food service, bus drivers, paras, central office administrators, and all of these numbers. So, we wanted to give you an update on what that looked like from a district perspective. You know, and certainly we were going to have some challenges with the FFCRA is going to expire on December 31st. And we don't know yet whether or not there's going to be any legislation. And we had some other numbers that I'm going to pull up here real quick on my computer. I didn't include them in the packet. Give me just a second. And there's a little more to the story on those numbers. Sorry, I just got to find them again. I closed a tab that I didn't mean to close.
Mike, are these numbers the start of the school year to date?
What's that?
Is this the start of the school year to date?
Yep. Some other numbers to consider are we have, of all those employees, the 261, 30 of them have exhausted their FFCRA leave, which represents about 11% of the 261 and represents about 4% of our total staff have exhausted their FFCRA leave. We have 2 staff members that have had to go into a leave without pay status because that was exhausted and they might have been a new employee that did not have any leave. And we have we have several more who are pretty much up against that wall right now, what I'm calling the leave without pay wall. And so one of the things that we've been talking about from a central office standpoint is what's going to happen moving into the future. If there is no provision for, from the federal government to extend FFCRA leave or reset it or whatever it is. And it's an interesting and complicated conversation that is certainly going to need some board input. If you've been following any of the MTSBA things that have been coming out recently from Lance Melton or Chris Goss relative to that, one thing we do have to do is notify our employees that that leave is set to expire on December 31st. But there are some options. You know, in our current MOUs or MOAs, I can't remember which way we're referring to it now, Jack. You got me totally. MOA. You know, there is an option to, you know, potentially renegotiate that in a memorandum of understanding. But another thing that was pointed out by MTSBA is that the board can actually develop an emergency leave policy to address this as well. So just something I wanted to put on in your minds and something that we're going to need to address. We'll probably talk about it in personnel and finance committee for sure before anything comes to the board. But just something out there that wanted to let you know kind of what was going on from a big picture point of view from the district. How many employees have had to use that, and you can see through the numbers, you know, on our quarantines and our positive cases, it's definitely having an impact. So, any questions about the FFCRA?
How long is the FFCRA break until paid leave? How long do they have? How many days? Or do
they get 80 hours, but it's also prorated by your FTE. So if I'm only a half-time employee, I only get half of that 80 hours. I get 40.
So 2 weeks max. 2
weeks max. Yep.
Any other questions for Micah on FFCRA? Okay, we're on to Cali and the Remote Education Center survey results. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Early part of November, we sent an online survey to our rec parents and a different survey to our rec students. what I wanted to do tonight was to share a couple key slides from their input. In the board packet, you have the results from all the survey questions. I'm not going to go over every single one of them. So if you bear with me, I'm going to fast forward through a lot of them, and we'll go from there. We have shared the survey results with all the rec teachers. We have monthly faculty meetings with them remotely, and Tracy, Bill, and I shared this survey yesterday and today with those teachers. And then on Thursday, we will share this survey with building administrators. So by the end of the week, we'll have the word out to a lot of different stakeholders about what the survey input is saying. But to start the discussion, I wanted to give you an update on what the enrollment looks like. We have 634 students currently enrolled in the rec program. We have just transitioned out of trimester 1 at the elementary level, and middle school also, trimester 1 ended, but we are going to be transitioning in semester 2 for the high school in the middle of January, but we are currently in the process of having students move out of rec and into on-campus learning. What you'll see is that we've had a decrease in the number of students in the rec program. Those students, for the most part, if they haven't left town, a couple of them have gone to homeschooling. Vast majority of them have come back to our on-campus instruction. I'd like to start with the parent survey. The parents were K through 12 survey, so we let all parents, if they had a child K through 12 in the rec program, they were surveyed. We had 164 parents respond, and one of the slides that we are always kind of wondering about is the device. What kind of device are the students using? And this, again, is through the parent lens. And if you look, a vast majority of the students are using a school district Chromebook or tablet or a personal Chromebook. So they're using the devices that we need them to use to be successful in the program. We also wonder about, have they had to share their device with other family members? See if I can get that out of the way. And what the survey is saying is no, they have not had to share the device with family members. Third question that has to do with technology that we've always kind of wondered about is, what about the reliability of your internet access? And what the parents are saying is 90% of them said in the response that the internet access was just fine. And that equates to 148 parents in that 90%. On average, it talks about the hours per week. I'll just skip through these and let you go through those on your own. This is another key piece, and that talks about the instructional strategies. So we know our remote teachers are using a wide variety of instructional strategies. Synchronous, meaning live meetings, if they're live in front of the camera, their students are on board, versus asynchronous, which is where they'll tape, do a video, upload it, and the students watch it on their own time or place. A lot of activities, those kind of things. This bar right here that has the 54% actually is asynchronous. When you upload the results from these Google surveys, if your writing is too long, if your statement's too long, it just comes up blank. So, but it is asynchronous. So if you look at this, this is a key slide for us, because what it tells us is through the parents' eyes, they really are supporting, over half of the synchronous, asynchronous, and Google Classroom. And by the way, Google Classroom is synchronous. So it's just one example of being synchronous. A new thing that you'll probably have, if you're around Google and their Google Meets, they have the ability to do small breakout rooms now. That's been a new thing in the last couple of months. According to the parents, that's not receiving a whole lot of traction. So we talked about that with our teachers on the last couple of days is, not much traction in that. Another one is, and this was a real key slide for us, because through the parent eyes, we want to know what their student was feeling about their remote learning experience. I designed the survey so that from eager to learn up, kind of had positive things, and then below the eager to learn was the things that were kind of, whoa. And so if you look through the parents' eyes, that they thought that their student was feeling comfortable about the experience. And then you've got an accomplished, productive, confident. You've got a real strong showing on the positive ends of things. I'm going to take this slide and I'm going to compare it to what the students think about their feelings about the experience, and you'll find some interesting things.
How many items were they able to select? Just one?
No, they could select as many as they wanted.
Okay.
As many as they wanted. Do you think remote learning is effective as an option for your child? And we have the 58% sitting there. And then the undecided are at 24%. So hopefully when we run this survey at the end, we'll have some people making some yes or no decisions for us on that. Again, talks about child's grades. We wanted to know from the parents what are the biggest challenges. And you'll see that through the parents' eyes, understanding the content, time management, lack of motivation, and communication with teachers. But the three right here, we actually, when Bill and I met with the teachers the last couple of days, we had some moments where we just stopped and reflected on that. Like, what exactly is that telling us? And the teachers had some interesting observations, such as if you are not motivated as a student and you are not managing your time, because it's all kind of mooshed together, you just kind of let it go, human nature, there's a chance that you're going to have a hard time understanding the content because you've gotten behind, you've dug yourself a hole, you're disengaged. And so when we were reflecting about this, it's like, that's not a surprise that those are, that those show. And the big question is what do we do about it? The last question that we asked the parents was, assuming that COVID is not an issue for next year, like the vaccine's out, it's gone away, whatever, would you like the district to continue offering remote learning? And we had yeses that represented 78 parents, the no's were 36, undecided 36, and doesn't apply to my student was 14. So keep in mind, these are K through 12 parents, and so some of the parents were senior parents. Some parents we already know aren't going to be here next year because they've called and said we're moving. And so that's why we had that fourth option. It just doesn't apply. But 78%, not quite half, said we'd like the district to offer that. And when we run this again this spring, we'll see if that changes. So let's take a look at the student survey. The students that we surveyed were only grades 6 through 12. We felt grades K through 5, the questions were going to be kind of over their head, and they were going to have a hard time, and so their results were probably not going to have a whole lot of meaning, and we were hoping that their parents were actually speaking for them in their survey. We had 124 students respond, equally split pretty much between the schools primarily, seniors, juniors, and sophomores, responded. The bulk, you know, I'd say like 65% of the responses were those upperclassmen. Okay, so I'm asking the same questions of the students that I did the parents. What device? And the little sliver down here on the personal smartphone, which we highly discouraged. We really struggled with a student thinking they can do a full-blown remote learning with a smartphone. But we did have one brave soul that admitted. This little sliver is the one brave soul that said, yes, I'm using a personal smartphone. The teachers disclosed, high school teachers disclosed to us today that they know for sure there's more than one. I said, well, they didn't take the survey, so. Anyway, the personal laptop, this 57, that represents 71 kids that are using a personal laptop. School district, that is about 20 kids that responded to the survey. Again, another question that we asked the adults, are you having to share your device with others? Is that going to cause, because if that had been the other way, like 90% of them saying yes, that might have been a problem because they had to wait, they couldn't go synchronous, whatever. This little 15% represents 19 students that took the survey that said, yeah, I have to share. Do you have reliable internet? This little sliver of no represented 3 students, and the blue represented 91. I'm going to whip through those. They're pretty self-explanatory. Get to my next one here. Okay. So this is the one on the how effective is your online learning been? And I split this up just a little differently because the students are tuned into the synchronous, not, you know, kind of what does it look like? And so I really wanted to start to get into a little bit deeper detail. But this slide just basically compare it to online versus campus. And you can see that between the more effective and equal to, you're looking at 55% of the students that responded to the survey are saying equal to or better. And the undecided, that green group, is that 13%, and I can tell you that represents, okay, I want to hold up the show here, about 17 people.
Going back to that slide, you could almost argue it both ways. 50% of the students are going to say online's more equal to or more effective, or 50% is less effective or equal to.
Mm-hmm.
Half full or half empty, Jeff.
What?
Yeah.
Half full or half empty.
Yes.
With your grades, here's the one that we really got into, the asynchronous, synchronous. And interestingly enough, the largest category was the blended model. And you're going to see that reflected in another slide coming up. And this is the one. So instructional strategies, that is the asynchronous and Google Class. So very similar to the parents. And the small breakout room thing that's new and whatever, that's right now it doesn't have traction with the students either. We reflected on this, what that meant, and they just keep on doing what you're doing. They're doing a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. The other thing that was interesting that we pointed out was the one-on-one meetings with their teachers. Look how high that is. That's pretty good. That's really good. And when you study the other slides that I'm not covering tonight, there was some pretty strong input that they really liked, and they spent a lot of time one-on-one with their teachers. more than I thought. It was kind of that's a good thing.
And how are the teachers feeling about it? Are the teachers saying that that's a method
they're
of stress,
feeling
or
great
that's
about it.
working? Cool.
Yeah. What are the challenges? And now, again, this is from the students' perspective. We asked the parents what they thought the challenges were. The students, their number one by quite a long shot is lack of motivation and time management and understanding content. So take a look just at those top three. Those are so intertwined. So intertwined.
Callie, could you explain the synchronous, asynchronous a little bit more? Synchronous is just live interacting with the teacher. Is that what it is versus?
You want to take it since you've talked?
Yeah, yeah, you're right, Amy. Synchronous is real time with your teacher. Asynchronous would be similar to saying teacher directed and led and student led. Would be the simplest way to put that.
The activities and in the asynchronous, so projects they complete, things like that. So you aren't live, you're doing it on your own time. So right now this board meeting is synchronous. But if you were to watch the video of the board meeting tomorrow, you're in asynchronous.
Okay, thanks.
Do we have students that are like working during the day and things like that, or do we have students that need to be asynchronous?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so is it always available, or are some classes only synchronous?
What we're finding with the high school students that the flexibility that the rec program offers works to their advantage, because an English teacher talked today about, she's got a male student that's working full-time construction, so he has his little Chromebook with him, and on his breaks and lunch and while he's going to the job site, he's doing his rec classes. And she does a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. And so we're seeing a little bit of everything out there, Ursula. Okay, I'm back to the feeling slide. How is the student feeling about their experience? And comfortable, but look at this. If you remember, the parent one had a lot of large responses at the top. The students, not so much. They were doing some self-disclosing that there's some overwhelm, there's some stress, there's some boredom, there's unmotivated. And I'll show you these two side by side so you can kind of see the difference. This is a slide if they're not having a good experience, what's going on. And again, it just reconfirms the lack of motivation, not having connection with their peers, things like that. The very last slide with the students was similar to the last slide as the parents, and that is, if COVID's not an issue, do you want? And the student response in the blue was 37%. And I'll show you this side by side against the parent one. The parents are a little more, although that's a pretty even split there on that. So let's just look at a couple slides side by side. The top slide bar graph is parent response, the bottom one is student to the same thing. And that's the feeling about the experience. And the parent, their largest one with the comfortable, same thing with the student. But look at, this is what I'm saying, the parents were like, yeah, but the students were self-disclosing a little more stress than what the parents were seeing. Parent biggest challengers, understanding content, time management, lack of motivation. You're going to see the same thing coming out with the students. And then that last slide, excuse me, not the, it's second to last slide, effective schooling. And then the very last slide on the COVID thing. So the students not quite as, 37% saying, yeah, I'm interested in next year, where it was almost 48% of the parents that responded. So what's the takeaway on this survey? 6 things, and again, they're very general, very general. Majority of our students are using a Chromebook or tablet. They aren't sharing a device with family members, and they have reliable internet. The students like synchronous and asynchronous, but they like a blended model, so they don't want 100% synchronous. They don't want 100% asynchronous. They like it mixed up. The students are feeling comfortable, but stressed, overwhelmed, and productive. But the parents are comfortable, accomplished, productive, and confident. That's what they're expressing that their student has gone through. So little disconnect, as I pointed out a minute ago, about the stressed, overwhelmed. Number 4, that both parents and students express that the remote learning option is equal to or more effective than on-campus learning. One of the reflections that we talked about today in our faculty meeting was the fact that there's concern over that our remote students might not be achieving at the same level as our on-campus students. So for example, chemistry looks entirely different remotely than it does on campus. And we will know, if there's a gap, kind of an unintended gap, it's just not the same experience. There's some classes you have to be there in that chemistry lab, for example. So, and the challenges expressed by students were the motivation, time management, understanding content, and feeling isolated. The parents expressed the same thing, but they expressed them in a different order. And then the last one was about the continuing this model. Our next steps, there's a couple things we're doing. We are going to hope to put out another survey towards the end of the school year. So we capture second semester parents and students or people that have been in it the whole year. So we have current data at the end of the school year. Micah and a team of administrators, we're going to meet over the Christmas break, and we're going to start our discussion on what do we do with the rec model for next year. Is there one? Is there not one? I mean, we've got this year, we got it. We are right where we need to be. We've got solid feedback from committed parents and students, but now's the time where we need to start to think about what does next year look like. And our teachers know that. Bill and I shared that with the rec teachers, that we're going to start those discussions. We'll have because it's got to wind through a big process, including coming in front of the board probably multiple times. So we have a lot of work to do, but Micah's, we're going to start working on that over the break. So that's
Cali
kind of our
keeps
next
saying
step.
Micah, and I'm like, who's she talking about?
You didn't look at your calendar,
Yeah, I did.
Any questions for Callie?
So did we have enough room for all of the students that wanted to, all the students that wanted to move either into the REC or out of it? Were they able to, or are there some people still waiting?
There are a couple ways to answer that, Ursula. At the beginning of the school year, we pretty much got everybody in it, although we were over our class sizes here and there.
Okay.
And we don't want to do that as long-term practice. That's not good.
Were we over in the REC or over?
Over in the REC. Okay. And our teachers were really good about it, but it's not a good practice. And so, but we did let everybody in. And then going into trimester 2, if they qualify, we have a decision-making tree, and if they met the qualifications to get into rec, which they did, we got them in. And Kyra literally is keeping track of that every day, multiple times during the day. And she'll come over and say, hey, Callie, we've got, what did you have, 3 students yesterday? Yeah.
And then I have one on the waiting list for third grade. Third grade is so full across the board.
Yeah.
And those are students that want to move into the REC.
Yeah. But we're real good about, you know, finding out if they have medical situations that we need to take care of. And we do. We make it work. And the high school master schedule, I'm working next week with the assistant principals from both high schools, and we're going to work on balancing classes for semester 2 for the rec program. So I can't tell you sitting here right now how we stand class size wise or what those sections are going to look like. I do know that we have students coming back on campus, and we have room in our on campus, especially in the elementary. We've got seats galore in the elementary on campus.
Okay.
So we are taking care of kids.
Okay, and you said there are less people that are going to be in the REC for second trimester.
Yes.
But with the amount over that we were, there still aren't really opening.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, CMS had a bunch. They had 40 kids move back to on-site.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had quite a bit, and about 20 that moved to rec. Elementary, we had 31 coming back, and we had about 5 go in.
Okay.
So even with like the overages that we had at the elementary level specifically, we were still able to mostly be able to accommodate everybody, but we're still running pretty lean.
Okay.
Any other questions for Callie?
I have one more. When we look at going into the REC potentially next year, one of the things I was wondering is, comparing it to like the LEC, is the LEC, not necessarily this year, but typically full? Or is there room for kids to get in there?
They typically, on a normal year, Ursula, they will have a waiting list.
Okay.
And they are full.
Okay.
On a typical year.
And does it seem like, as you're seeing the students that are doing this, obviously there's a lot of students that are doing this because of, you know, the pandemic,
Yes.
and because of health reasons, but does it seem like there's also an overlap for students that are doing it for the same reasons they might need the LAC, or does it seem like it's a separate group?
There are some students in the rec program that do not like this type of experience in the buildings. They're not into the high school experience. They want a quality education, but they are just fine doing it online or remotely. Mm-hmm. And and I don't know, sitting here today, I don't know what next year will look like. All I know is that we're going to do the homework. We're going to kick every tire and look under every rock to see what is possible for our kids. So.
Lance or Amy, do you have any questions for Callie?
I do. I was wondering, Callie, if there was any sense of the new students, that we got an unexpected number of new students moving into the district. Are they more inclined to do the remote learning or to be in attendance?
Amy, they are going on campus primarily.
Okay, thanks. That's surprising, actually, because I think my perspective is that people moved here a lot to be safe from COVID. So I think it's actually really a testimony to the success of the school district in being able to, have people be safe in school. So that's really, I think that's a great testimony to you all.
And I also, I said this to the rec teachers the last 2 days, but I also said publicly, is our teachers have done an amazing job in the rec program. They have had an attitude of positivity. We can do this. Today, I mean, they were brainstorming some things that they wanted to do to take on. I mean, they have done an absolutely remarkable job, and I just dearly honor them, respect their work, and it's just been amazing. Nothing short of that, amazing. So.
Thank you, Amy. Lance submitted a comment saying he has no questions. So if there's no other questions for Callie, we'll move on to the last item under old business, and Mike, a winter activities update.
Yeah, and I don't have any graphs or survey results to share. I apologize.
I could have done you a PowerPoint.
I know. There have been a lot of discussion around winter activities, primarily in my circle with the AA superintendents. Every community is a little bit different. Everybody has a different health officer, has different recommendations coming forward. And tonight, Rob Watson, the superintendent from Missoula, sent a email and letter to the Montana High School Association. And just to give a little background, winter practices for wrestling, basketball, swimming started on Monday. And that was pushed back 3 weeks from when we would normally start in November. So we've already had a delay to the season. We've canceled non-conference games and contests. And there's some concern that when we come back, medical professionals are saying, you know, we fully intend to see a spike after the holiday break, and we're scheduled to start our competitions on January 2nd. And so the request or the ask is to push that back to January 18th to give us 2 full weeks to assess the situation. Where it gets complicated is, and, you know, as I said, lots of discussion around this. There was discussion around, let's just postpone winter activities altogether until the spring, and let's run our spring and winter activities concurrently, which creates challenges because you have coaches that coach in both. You have kids that participate in multiple activities. You know, would we be able to have subs in our buildings for our coaches when they're gone? How many kids would be out of the building at away content? I mean, there's just, you just keep adding on layer and layer after layer of challenges. With the AA superintendent's request to MHSA, one of the things that's kind of on the table is whether or not we would be able to extend the season, the 2 weeks that we're asking to be shortened. So if basketball was scheduled to be over March 15th, now we're talking April. And then not starting spring sports until April, and then it's a question of whether or not those spring sports have a extended season past the end of the last day of school, or if those activities will have a shortened schedule as well. So I just wanted to keep you up to speed on that. You know, certainly pros and cons to all of it. I completely understand the rationale being presented by some of my colleagues, but I also have said, you know, we've been open for 16 weeks. We have not shut down a school. We have been able to staff our positions. You know, things look a little bit different in Kalispell than some of those other communities. But that's not to say that things couldn't change. So I felt comfortable saying, yes, I'm willing to attach my name to that letter, you know, because if they can't have their activities, we're not going to be participating against them either. So it may be, you know, a moot point at that time. So just wanted to give you an update on that and let you know where things were going with winter activities. But practices started, everybody's doing practices, and we're continuing to move forward on that.
Micah?
Yes.
If we do move to the push beyond the end of the school year for the spring semester, because we pushed the winter activities, does that have insurance implications if students are on campus more weeks of the year than we were expecting, or is there something we need to be careful of if we push it further into the summer?
There's lots of things to be careful of.
Okay, is that one of them?
You know, you think about coaches who maybe have jobs in the summertime, kids, you think about transportation, you know, we won't need subs, you know, but can we even ask our coaches to extend their season, you know, another 2 weeks? So there's lots of implications that need to be discussed with the AA superintendents, our activities directors, Montana High School Association when it comes to all of that. So.
Any more questions related to winter activities for Micah?
I had just a quick question, Micah. Do you have a sense of the schools across the state that are having to shut down and do pure remote? Are they basically struggling with their activities as well? Is there any sense of that those schools having to shut down are really not doing well in terms of their sports team, that they're all quarantined and can't really compete against our teams?
It's hit and miss, Amy. You know, there have been, you know, open gyms that have been going on for the last couple of weeks, you know, kind of a supervised, it's not a practice, but a chance for kids to go hone their skills. I know Helena had 3 teams that had to quarantine prior to their season starting because of an open gym, those kind of things. You know, and that's the challenge. The risk of transmission is going to be higher. It's believed it's going to be higher in the winter time in an activity like wrestling, where there is no social distancing, in basketball, where, you know, close physical contact. So that's where the concern is that, you know, if you do have a team that, you know, a player that gets sick and a team has to quarantine, now there's not a game, you know, so it goes on with the potential possibilities for all of that. But, you know, as far as AA school districts, Kalispell and Billings are the only 2 that have not had to close down a school due to a COVID outbreak or a staffing shortage.
Good job, guys.
So, and with that, you know, I guess, you know, as the last part of this COVID update, I have to give a lot of acknowledgement to our central office team, Cali, Bill, Greg, Tracy, Gwen, Sarah. If they weren't helping guide the ship, they all have a hand on the helm. And just amazing what Cali has done with the Remote Education Center, what Bill and the office managers have to do every day, every week to collect the data so that we can come back to you and share and talk to our community about what's really going on in our schools. So just a hats off to our team. It's taken everybody and we're getting it done.
Okay, any questions, Amy or Lance?
No, but thank you for asking.
Okay, now we're moving on to item number 9, personnel actions, and the first item is the regular personnel activities for hires and terminations. This is an action item, standard for each meeting that we have.
I move to accept it as presented.
Okay, a motion made by Rebecca and seconded by
I'll second it.
Ursula to approve the personnel action items for new hires and terminations and resignations and new positions. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Oh, that was Lance, okay. Good,
And Amy, aye.
thank you. Motion passed unanimously. Now we're on to personnel item hazard pay, and that would be Tracy.
So before Tracy talks, we have had this discussion at Personnel and Finance, and then just when we thought we had our ducks in a row, Montana School Boards Association sends out some new stuff, and then we think, okay, we've got it all put together now, and then Montana School Boards Association sends out more new stuff. And while this was originally placed on the agenda as an action item, I think it needs to be discussion tonight, and I'll let Jack talk a little bit more about that. And so with that, we want to entertain the discussion with the board, have everybody have some input, but we're likely going to have to bring this back once we know we have all of our T's crossed and I's dotted.
So all the board members should have received an email from Chris Goss at about 11:06 this morning that had a whole bunch of criteria in it, and if you haven't, go back and look at it. And that's what kind of said, we've got to regroup and come up with something. But for those of you that have read that email and you have questions pertaining to this or any other item, that's what we want to do, and we want to probably try and have a special meeting sometime, maybe even a week from tonight, remotely. I don't know that we need to be on site. It'll probably just be a one-item meeting, so I don't know why it would last any more than 30 minutes, but it would still exist. But the real questions come down to, we cannot call it a stipend. We cannot call it a bonus. It has to be for hazard. And parts of the administrative discussion that's going to go on will be, for example, what kind of exposure do the personnel have in the environment that they're working in? That's one of the substance questions. So personnel that are involved with the remote education center, their exposure to COVID is minimal to non-existent. Individuals that are in the classrooms have a higher exposure. Whether they're classified or certified individuals that are in the central office in the buildings can have exposure because of their contact with parents or students or wherever. So there needs to be an assessment across all of the personnel groups to determine the different levels of exposure. The proposal talked about spending $350,000 in this. Whether we spend it all or we don't spend it all, we don't know the answer. The part of the discussions at personnel and finance was the fact that we've got a balance of the CRF money of, I'll say, $450,000. And if we don't use it, then it gets returned to the federal government. But we have strict parameters on how it can be used. Everybody's already gone through all of the expenditures we've made to date to figure out how to substitute CRF money for some of the general fund money that's already been used to help pay for that, to reimburse it. We've made new purchases out of it. And so now the question is, we can't, unless we can get both the invoice and the item on site by December 31st. So there's limitations on new purchases. So with that, I'll just open it up for discussion unless Micah, Cali, or Gwen have something that they might want to add to it before we open it up for questions and discussion.
No, I think you summarized it really well, Jack. There is a presentation, but for some reason we're not able to get it to open. I don't know where we would land on that survey.
So it appears that we've lost our connection
The EduPortal.
It's not.
Yeah, timeout.
I sent it to you in an email, so you could at least present on the screen.
Stop your screen before you start looking at somebody up very late tonight.
I like to live on the edge.
I think yeah, there.
I've got it right here. I don't know what
I've got it too. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Mike, I was wondering, do you, at some point, do you want to kind of maybe summarize some of the questions I had and your answers that really were super informative? Yep. Or I could summarize our conversation. But I'm thinking maybe before the presentation might be good. So when the other board members are looking at the presentation, it's with kind of some questions answered.
Yeah, I'll start by summarizing, Amy, and then if there's anything else that you wanted to add, if I forgot something,
Okay,
so like Jack talked, like Jack talked about, the CRF funds are, we got an initial disbursement, and we were told you have till December 30th to have it bought, paid for, and in hand, right? So if we bought Chromebooks, we have to have the Chromebooks physically in our hands in order for it to count. and so we got that initial disbursement of CRF in September. And then in early November, we got an email that said, hey, could you use any more money? We had 10 million set aside for transportation. It wasn't really used. And we put our hands up and said, yes, went and asked for $800,000. They sent us 500,000, and I'm rounding numbers off. The challenge is we got that notification that we got that additional money in November, right at the end of November. So we literally had a month to spend it. And it is, for better or worse, it is really challenging to spend $3 million in 3 months and have the product in hand. And keeping in mind that you have to use it for what is allowed. So for example, at one point we said, hey, we're gonna buy a food service truck because that is something that we could use. It's COVID related. If we go remote, we're gonna need to take meals out to kids. Well, turns out we can't buy vehicles with CRF money. There's a lot of things that you can buy with it, and there's a lot of things that you can't. You can't use it to pay for teacher salaries, because that's something we already paid for. And the only way you can use it for salaries and benefits is if someone has been repurposed. So Bill Sullivan is a great example of a repurposed employee for what he and after he's done, we're not sure what we're going to do. Sorry, Bill. And so when we sat down and when we first had this initial discussion, one of the things we've been looking at is what expenditures have we had so far this year that would fit in that CRF category that we could buy. So we bought custodial cleaning equipment. It wasn't replacing or supplanting, it was additional equipment that we could justify under the CRF allowable uses for those kind of expenditures. And now we're sitting here it's December 8th, and we have, 20 days to have all of this money spent, and whatever we have remaining in purchases from the general fund we're looking at, we've sat down and said, all right, can we do this with this money? And Gwen says no. And I say, well, can we do this with this money? And Gwen says no. But here's what you can do with the money. And one of the allowable expenses is hazard pay. If the board says, you know what, we're not going to do the hazard pay, then that money gets returned back to the federal government. It is use it or lose it. And so as we were looking at this and considering what some of our options are, that was really a question in our mind. Have we spent all that we could on masks and sanitizer and disinfectant and disinfecting machines and personnel and technology and all of those things? So that was some of the questions that Amy had that she and I talked about. And I think probably some questions that you had as well. And then as you see the stuff that came through Montana School Boards Association, it kind of creates some more questions. So, Amy, does that summarize pretty well?
Yes, I think it does. I was asking Micah, we know that we're gonna be facing some hard decisions at the end of the school year. I was like, can we use it for salaries? And then we could do a bonus later. And it was like, no. It's like, can we buy a school bus? No. Can we use a boiler? No. So, it was really a clarity in my mind of how we were facing. And also, I had personal concerns of this huge decision of hundreds of thousands of dollars, making this decision in 6 days. So I felt a lot of reassurance and calm that Micah kind of has recognized that maybe giving us another week. And paramount is that Montana School Board Association, that we have legal counsel, that what we decide to do is legally solid, because the ramifications of having to return this money with our potential deficit, that could be really devastating to us, is just taking the time to make sure that we do this right. And then also the acknowledgement that seriously, people are putting their lives on the line for keeping the school open. And so we all want to support that, acknowledge that, and we want to do the right thing, but we also, want to make sure that we're going to be able to keep the school open in June and not have to lay people off.
Well said, Amy. Yes, Ursula.
Can we use the money?
No.
Can we use the right?
Go ahead.
Can we use the money to make up for if people have used up all of their 80 hours and they need to quarantine again? Is there anything, since that's like not valid? No,
Well,
it still is salary. We can't, it's not like.
potentially, you could, but, one, it runs out on December 31st, that particular provision, as well as the money. And that's probably been the biggest challenge. Like, if we had, a whole year, and that's been our advocacy with our state senators and, was, man, that's a really tight timeline for school districts. But yeah, I mean, Gwen and I sat down this morning again, and we started, trying to brainstorm a little list of, okay, what can we do? Where can we find, avenues where we can spend that money that would take some relief off the general fund. And I feel like Gwen's done a really good job of identifying what those allowable areas are. Yeah. So, go ahead, Will.
So, Michael, what kind of engagement do the unions have on a decision like this, or the?
It can be a board decision to do it, to recognize it. The unions could have said, hey, we want to come to the negotiating table for that, and some districts have actually negotiated it, and other ones have just said, we're going to do this. And I'm aware of districts, and in the presentation you'll see some of them where they've said, for example, when we first talked about this at personnel, we just said, let's keep it simple, let's just do a $500 per employee. And then when you read the guidance from the Treasury Department, they say you can't do that. You can't just give a blanket amount to everybody. You have to actually identify what the hazard is. You have to look at the hours that are worked. You have to look at all of those things. So there's some things in this that from personnel committee, I feel like I've had to backpedal on. But again, we want to just make sure that Gwen and I talk about jail a lot. and all I said was I get top bunk. So, yeah, we recognize, and I think Amy said it well, that, we just need to pause, make sure that we're doing it right, that we aren't getting ourselves into a position where down the road there was an unintended consequence on this. So, in some ways I'm thankful, because some districts have just said, hey, this is what we're going to do, and they've already done it. And now they're going to have to go back and relook at how they're doing this. So those emails that came through today have put a lot of people into kind of a spin. So I'm glad we actually have the time to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to let Tracy walk us through the presentation. It's only 8 slides.
And I do want to say that it was interesting because we presented this in Personnel Committee, and the emails were silent. We presented this in Finance Committee, the emails were silent. And then probably around 3:30 Friday afternoon, MTSBA started turning emails about this, and also one other issue. And so it was good timing. But when we initially presented this to you, we were, and so was the rest of the state, as you'll see, we're under the impression that we were able to do this. So again, it does deal with hazard pay and the conditions on which the employees are working under. So it has to deal with, based on their duties, the risk exposure to COVID-19 that is beyond the risk taken by an average member of the community,
And they're generally focusing on the duties of the teachers and other staff who are on site in close proximity. So it's more of a safety issue is how we will have to take a look at it to see how and if we can allocate some funds.
We don't get hazard pay as trustees.
You don't. We can do a percentage of what we get.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you do get cookies, and I think, Jack, you've had 6, right? I've been a lot counting.
$100
for cookies. So again, this might be different. We did not have a chance to talk to our other AAs, Gwen, I don't know if you've had since we talked, but as of Friday afternoon, this is what the other AAs were doing. So Billings was giving a $1,500, that was prorated by FTE, that's for all employees. Great Falls was $500 for 20 hours up, and then $250 for 10 to 20 hours, and then $100 for less than 10. Missoula, Butte, and Bozeman were discussing it, but they were looking similar to what Great Falls and Kalispell were looking at. And then Helena has been back and forth a number of times. And I think they're struggling with the same definition under the guidelines as we are, in terms of they were going to provide similar to what we were doing. And then at the point that we presented this, which was Friday, they were in a no, and Belgrade is a no. Our local area schools are considering something similar as well. So we've gotten information from Whitefish, Big Fork, Columbia Falls, and Summers Lakeside in terms of doing something. Big Fork, I do want to point out, the rest of these are considering stipend or hazard pay or whatever we're calling it in terms of kind of looking back and offering that at the end of the year. Big Fork took a different route. They actually essentially paid overtime to all of their teachers who worked outside of their contracted day. So our teachers are not eligible for overtime, but they took the stand that any hours that they had to work beyond the contracted day, that they would pay them equivalent to, I think it's the curricular pay for at least maximum of 20 hours. So theirs is pretty significant. I'm sorry, I was getting that mixed up with Whitefish. They're just paying the overtime based on their rate of pay. So theirs is actually a lot more significant than what a hazard pay one-time allocation would be. So again, this is something that we were originally proposing. We are going to be going back and looking at the information that we've received and then making a determination based on that initial definition of, again, hazard pay and safety. So this was what we originally proposed, and I think that most likely we'll be going back and looking at whether or not we have to modify this based on the new information. Okay? And then we were hoping, but
we are presenting.
Yeah. And then I'll let Gwen, if you want to, so in terms of just, again, how these funds are being used, it's a bigger conversation we were just having a few minutes ago. I do want to say that there is a lot of effort that Gwen put into, Bill put into, Mike and Cali, the building administrators put into what can be covered on the CRF dollars. So this isn't something that we've just kind of haphazardly thrown some things at it. We really looked at every single expenditure, even down to the point of HR and looking at our advertising that we've done for our subs and how we can actually apply that to the CRF fund. So when you're looking at these numbers, this isn't just something that we just kind of put together. It's something that was very well thought out. So I'll let Gwen take over.
So you see at the top there, the initial allocation, and we got notice of that, I think in June, maybe May. No, this is actually CRF. I can't even remember. I can't even remember what pots of money we have. So it was more like mid-summer and closer to August that we found out what the initial. So we got ESSER money first, and we had $1.5 million, and we had 2 years to spend it. So that's a good plan. But then fairly close to August, we find out, oh, we're gonna get coronavirus, money from the governor, and we just have until December to spend it. So the initial allocation at the top there, we did code some things in the 1920 budget because we hadn't completely closed our books when we found out about the CRF money. And we did things like shore up our food service. Remember, we were $80,000 short. We shored that up.
Print shop.
Oh, yeah, our print shop was short some funding, and we did that. So we did spend a little bit of money in our last year's budget. And then a couple of weeks, in November, we found out that we were getting the additional allocation. And so total there, $1.4 million on both sides. So looking at what have we already spent through November 30th, about $500,000, $574 on the elementary, $518 on the high school. We repurposed Cali's salary as well, and Bill's salary was used. We paid for the rec teachers, but remember, we can only pay July through December, right? So the rest of their salary will have to come out of ESSER for the next half of the year. We bought quite a few pieces of software to help with the remote instruction. And again, I mean, they're very specific. You can only pay for that piece that you're going to use through December. And beyond that, we'll be relying on the ESSER funds. And so that's where we kind of run into some issues with getting this spent, is that we really, we put Greg's salary in here. He came in October through December. We purchased cleaning equipment for the custodians, and that, or for the custodial staff, that really is a great example of a savings that we're going to realize down the road. We never would have had $400,000 to replace and have the, top-notch, all in good condition cleaning equipment, which is critical right now in the pandemic. So, and over time, you will realize that because you won't be purchasing those for the next 5 years, right? And then, of course, technology was a huge part of this. So the technology, a lot of the technology comes into that outstanding purchase orders. So we placed these orders immediately for iPads across the district, and they're not available. And they have to be in the house, paid for by December 31st. So we have, $500,000 on the elementary and $650,000 on the high school that's still on purchase orders. And technically, those vendors could hold us to the purchase orders because they're basically the same as a check. We could get out of them, but we really need the equipment. If we were to go remote right now, we would have a lot of kids without the technology they need. So we want to hold on to those purchase orders. We're in line. We pull those purchase orders, we're going to go to the end of the line, right? So what I'm going to do with that is we are going to be shifting some expenditures. So, for example, 2 of our elementary schools use their technology funds to buy some Chromebook carts and Chromebooks out of their technology funds. So we are going to move those into the CRF. They've already got them, we've received them, we paid for them. We're going to move those expenditures into CRF. Then when these purchase orders are filled, we'll go to the technology fund and use the money that we reestablished in the tech fund. So we're going to play kind of a shell game. It's, but it's for technology, and it's legitimate expenditures. And so we're going to be doing quite a bit of moving around of money. Also in the purchase orders was that custodial equipment, but it's coming in. I talked with John Flink today, and he said it'll be in the house, and you'll have invoices in your hand so that we can pay those, because that's $400,000 of these purchase orders. So then we last spring we allowed employees to carry over more leave than they normally would, because they didn't have the opportunity to use their leave, and so it didn't seem fair to then, we have limits on how much they can carry over, and so they would have lost it, which didn't seem fair. So we carried it over thinking, oh, well, we'll be able to use it this year. Well, now we really don't want them to use their leave. So we agreed, and they've agreed to let us pay out their excess carryover. So let's say, for example, you've got 4 personal days this year, and you carried over 4 from last year. We're going to pay out that 4 that you carried over, but you don't lose your this year's. And honestly, the likelihood of people being able to use this year's, I mean, that's part of the reason we've been able to stay open with fewer subs, is because people are coming to work every day. And so, so we're going to be paying out the excess leave. We know exactly what that is because it's a June 30th balance, and we know what everyone's salary is, and so we know, and that's the 74 and the 66,000. Then we're going to pay out comp time that they've earned. So if a teacher teaches someone else's class during their prep period, then they have to prep at home that evening. So we're giving them comp time for that time where they're covering for other teachers. And there's a lot of this happening. That's the other reason we're able to stay open with as few subs as we have. We don't know those numbers because until we pay the teachers on the 10th of December, we don't know how much comp time, they have. So we've kind of estimated what we're looking at for paying that out. The excess leave payout is going to come on their December 15th paycheck. That comp time payout is going to come later, before we're out for Christmas. We're going to be running additional payrolls to cover some of that because we can't calculate it. Even if you had made a decision tonight on this hazard pay, we would not be able to pull that together because tomorrow is payday has to go out of the building for classified, and then a couple days later, certified. So we would be running more payrolls later anyway. So, but that leaves a balance of about $468,000, and hazard duty pay will be about $375,000. That's a round number. We have about 750 employees at $500 a piece, and there's your number. So there's still $100,000 there. We have things that we're going to move from other places, the general fund, into CRF to finish off that. I can tell you it's going to be zero. Micah and I might go to jail when we're done, but it's going to be zero.
I don't like being hitched to that wagon.
Yeah, I know. I told Mikey, you're going to know exactly what's going on, so if I get hit by the bus, he's like, no, I know what you're doing. You're making sure that I'm equally responsible.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
I'll share in that responsibility.
Yeah.
How much of it are you putting aside for bail?
Yeah, that, we might need that 93,000.
But we're accomplices to this too.
That is true. We really have been careful about trying to follow the and that's all in jest. But to find another 375,000, I'm not sure we could get there within the guidelines. We probably would end up sending some of this back, and that would really hurt me. I want you to know. I just can't imagine that. But especially when we have so many needs, right? So we think we're aligned to make this happen. We do have we just need to formulate it so that we meet all the guidelines Montana School Board Association put out, and if they would stop changing them every day, then that would help. So I think they're about done because today they gave a recap list. They've had email, and now they've kind of finalized it with, these are the things you have to do. So now we can look at that, look at what we're talking about here, and make sure that we are in compliance, and then bring it back. So, questions about that? Sure, that's okay.
About how many, what percentage of the employees are going to qualify for the hazard pay? Like we were saying, some of them won't because they're in the REC, and then the second part of the question is, are any of, what is TBD, are any of the other funds, like the ESSER funds that we have 2 years to spend, could we do something where we give everybody hazard pay? Because, it's not as hazardous, but everybody's working so hard this year. Are there things that could be done, or does it seem like it will be the ones who qualify only?
We've rolled that around quite a bit.
Good question, and have thought about that. You know, are there some other potential funding sources so that everybody is, taken care of? You know, so, you know, just as a quick example, I'm not sure that a teacher in a remote setting would fit the qualification, like, I don't know where that would fit. You know, so those are the things that we have to have a little bit of time to work through and talk about.
And we could do those hazard pay out of the general fund. Yeah, I don't even know what to call it anymore.
But it would be the general
But
fund,
we
not
could-
out of like ESSER funds necessarily.
Well, ESSER is pretty much obligated. Remember, it's $1.5 million, and it's supposed to last for 2 years.
And it's gone.
Well, yeah, we have.
Yeah.
A lot of it will be used just, you know, so you take the remote education teachers. We can pay up to December their salary, but then we're gonna be using ESSER funds to pay the remainder through June.
And is that going to be an issue at all with the unions, or like that's the other double A's are doing this, like other things are doing this? It is going to, have you gotten any kind of like pushback on that at all? Or the schools that have done it, are they able to give it to everybody?
You know, I haven't. I did talk with Lynn today, just to give her the heads up that, because it had gone through personnel and finance and then it changed, just to let her know that, you know, we have to be in compliance, with that. And, you know, on first blush saying, hey, everybody's gonna get, you know, a $500 hazard pay. And then having to go back and say, well, actually, you know, I said that, and so now I'm having to backpedal a little bit on that, but we'll get it figured out.
Okay.
And there are some that, you know, are going to be excluded, but, you know, really looking at any permanent employee of the district who, you know, because we have coaches who are community coaches, right? They get a stipend, but if they qualify for the hazard pay, we have to make that determination. Driver's ed teachers who aren't teaching, but they come in, you know. So there's a little bit of work to be done on that.
Any other questions regarding the hazard pay?
I was wondering, Micah, would you be receptive if the board members, as they all, you know, think about this presentation and what we're going to be doing in a week, if I'm sure they're going to have ideas, and is it okay if we just email these ideas to you? Would you have time to like entertain ideas?
Yeah. As long as you get them to me by tomorrow. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think if there's any suggestions, recommendations, thoughts from the board, as you ponder this, things that you want to make sure you see happen, you know, obviously staying within the guidelines, if we can work through some of that. But the sooner the better. You know, we did talk about, you know, these funds have to be expended by December 31st. We have a Christmas break coming up. It's going to take an additional payroll run to make this happen, if approved. So we're really looking at a December 18th deadline for payroll. So we're looking at early next week to be able to come back. Hopefully we have everything lined out and we can answer all the questions and consider any thoughts or comments from the trustees.
Lance, do you have any questions? Well, I would entertain a motion.
Oh, I had a question that might be for Gwen or might be for Cali. I made a list of the things I wanted to make sure that you'd looked at, and you'd looked at almost all of them, of course. You guys are great. The one I didn't see was when we got the ESSER grant, they changed the rules on us to the allocation to the private schools in the area. Did we look at reimbursing ourselves for the money we'd already paid out to those private schools, or is that not okay? Or do we think about it?
Yeah, that's not really an option, once we had already distributed.
Okay, just thought if we could pay ourselves back for the money that was stolen from us.
Yeah, well.
Any further questions? I would entertain a motion that this be tabled to a special board meeting to be scheduled most likely a week from tonight, but still not determined, and to have action taken at that point in time.
I so move.
Sue made the motion,
Second.
Diane seconded the motion. Any further, a motion to table is not debatable, so we take our action now. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I heard an aye from Amy and an aye from Lance. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we're on to the next agenda item, which is COVID MOA update with the classified union that we've been working on for a month. And Sue and Scott and I have been the trustees on the committee with Lance and Glenn and Tracy.
Oh, thank you, thank you. All right, so this is similar to the MOA that we have already approved for the KEA. It does go over, and I'm, so it goes over the work site as it relates under the current circumstances that we have with this pandemic. It talks about any compensation modifications, performance of duties. It also talks about evaluations, makeup of lost instructional time, state and federal laws, and then the precedent. So there's nothing really that is beyond the scope of what we have talked about here, and pretty much is in line with what the KEA did. I don't, for time's sake, and also I think I brought this to you before, I don't think I need to go over it in detail, but as you reviewed this packet for tonight, did you have any questions on this MOA? Great.
This is not rushed, but we ended up spending a lot of time on this. And I think it turned out well.
Yes. It's been very successful to have the board be a part of the MOA process, I can say that for sure, so.
Amy or Lance, do you have any questions?
Nope. None, but thank you so much for all the time spent on this.
Okay, I entertain a motion to approve the classified MOA as presented. Well, no, you're going to make the motion. Okay, so Kim made the motion. Ursula seconded it.
Yeah.
Kim made the motion to approve the classified MOA as presented, seconded by Ursula. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And Paul Doherty is one of our classified union leadership reps, and he is here tonight to help ratify the classified CBA. So thanks, Paul, for all you guys did too. You've been outstanding this year. Give them huge kudos.
Thank you, Paul.
We have 3 copies there. We signed by the superintendent. I'm not too sure if you're the interim chair or not. Otherwise, we can get that from Lance later, and then it'll go to Glenn.
I would assume you can get that from Lance tomorrow or the next day. You don't need it absolutely tonight, do you?
No.
Okay.
Well, we're trying to be efficient.
I can swing.
So that we can get this publicized.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And thanks, Paul, for what you guys do.
Okay, the next agenda item is a MTSB fiscal year 2022 dues revenue. And that's Mike is going to talk about it. We talk about it each year. And this purpose for discussion happened many years ago when the cost was probably $5,000 or $6,000, I think, at that time. And we've always renewed it, even though there's debate about what we gain from it. And I guess, and it's hard to define what we gain. I think we do gain quite a bit. And so it really comes down to, do any of you have any questions on what kind of value you think we get from MTSB? Yes.
Well, we had talked about talk about the board governance meetings, sometimes bringing somebody in to do a training. I think that, that would be one of those things that would help us to feel like we were definitely getting our money's worth. I mean, I don't know if it's been harder to feel engaged or if it's been easier because things are online this year, but with things online, I assume probably it's easier for people to be engaged. But you know, I think if we keep being a member, we should definitely try to do all of the things that we are capable of doing with the membership.
So was that a comment or a question?
A comment. My comment is, if we continue doing this, I think that we should utilize the training as much as possible.
Okay. Now, the question I have is, does that training part of the dues, or is there an added cost to that training? I'm assuming.
I think it's part of the dues, right?
There is. So, for example, they've been doing symposiums. They're currently doing one on innovation, flexibility, and school safety. The second one was today, and then there's a third one to that. The Title IX trainings, a lot of those are included in that.
You're talking on-site though versus online.
And we get one, I was under the impression that we would get one of those.
There is some, but lots of times if, let's say it was a 4-hour training that they were going to come in and work with us on strategic planning, it would be an additional cost associated with that.
Okay, see, I wasn't clear on that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, some of their services are for fees, even similar type services. I mean, some of their legal services are part of the membership. Some of them they charge for. And the training they're doing this year is not in-person training.
Right.
It's, online. And it's awesome. I mean, you could
There is.
watch it at your leisure and a lot of different topics. I think it's invaluable, the services that they provide, especially this year. And it's interesting because they can track how often they get requests or questions from different school districts. And so it's very interesting. Of course, a lot of their services go to the smaller school districts that just don't have the resources that we do in a bigger district. But they have to serve all the school districts equally.
Yeah. In some of those trainings, like even the symposium, we are paying a fee as a district, but that allows every administrator, every school board trustee, rather than $125 a head, they're saying, hey, for $500, if you sign up, anybody, and then once we have, even if you weren't able to make it, they're recording them, so you can go back and watch them later.
If we weren't members, is there like an a la carte option? Can you pay them for some of the things without being a member?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think that's really limited in what non-members have access to, because even to access their website, you have to log in. There is some talk, especially with the legislative session, about having a non-member portal to their website just to keep track of the things going on in the legislature, but that's still, questionable.
Any other questions related to the MTSB dues? Is that Lance or Amy?
Both.
That was Lance.
Amy, go first.
I have got a comment and then a question. My first, I guess my question is, Micah, who of the trustees are able to call MTSBA directly? I know when I was on the Fairmont School Board, it changed. We had like 2 representatives, and then it changed where every trustee could. What is the present status of who can actually call and talk to Deborah or somebody, Tony, or?
I think any trustee, either through email, as you see through all the MTSBA threads, can call, or or email. You can have that communication with them.
Okay. And then my comment is, I am a huge fan of MTSBA. I know at Fairmont Egan School, they were just invaluable, and I just respect their legal counsel. But I also think what we're doing right now is very important because it is expensive and they are not infallible. So I think what's a great relationship is to recognize their legal expertise, but we should not be shy about questioning things that maybe just don't seem right, or to ask further questions and not just to blindly follow them, but with the recognition that, 99% of the time they're right. So that was just a comment, is they're not always right, but they're really, really usually right. And if we don't think they're right, we should engage them in conversation for clarity.
Yeah, and I would say, in my brief time as superintendent, that we have asked legal opinion from other attorneys. There are other school law attorneys in the state. Some of them we have to work through just because of our insurance carrier, right? So we have a situation come up, it's a potential insurance claim. They will say, hey, we need you to talk to so-and-so, not MTSBA. So there is some of that, and we've asked for legal opinion on some different things. And the interesting thing is you can get two completely different opinions on it, and which one's right.
Lance, do you have a question?
So Lance,
do you have your video on? If you have your video on, turn it off, because we're only getting maybe every fifth or sixth word of what you're saying.
I think I still got it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would summarize Lance's comments to say that MTSBA is also a powerful lobbying group within the legislature and do a lot of work on behalf of all the member schools to promote legislation, oppose legislation, and do a lot of work in that regard.
Perfect.
And we use the term unified voice.
Yep, a unified.
All right. Good summary by Micah. Thank you.
I'm good at interpreting Zoom calls now. So to put this in a nutshell, MTSBA biannually looks at increasing their rates, and there's a chart in there that shows what that cost is. This is a $640 increase to the cost for the largest school districts in the state over last year. Because we're members, one representative from the board, your board chair, Lance, is going to go online and vote for the approval. They can't approve it without the membership's consent. So that's what all of this is about.
So we're voting to tell Lance to vote yes?
Correct.
Okay.
So I entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 dues estimate as presented, and allow Chair Lance Isaac to submit the ballot on the district's behalf. Will made the motion.
I'll second it.
Sue seconds it. Any further discussion?
I was just a clarification, so we aren't agreeing for Ffcra to be members, or we are also agreeing to be members for the year?
We're presently a member.
For the next, but for next year?
Yeah.
Like this says both, it gives Lance the ability to
I would say that you have the ability, this is just on the dues, but the district would have the ability to say, hey, we're going to break from MTSBA and we're going with.
But that's not what we're voting on right now?
No.
Okay.
But there is an implication that will follow through. And
There's
approve.
an implication, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any further questions, comments? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Lance? Motion passes unanimously.
Lance, you have to do the electronic ballot by December 18th, 5 PM.
I think we should go to race and bail on them.
Okay, we are now on to, new business, construction contracts and change orders. And Greg's here to talk about elementary, 4 elementary projects. So Greg, introduce yourself to the rest of the board.
Hi, I'm Greg Masel. I'm the Director of Facilities. So we have a couple of projects that we're looking at. That one is for Edgerton. So that's, you guys go back. I think that's the top one. So Edgerton's looking at putting in some ADA buttons for one of their students so that he can access the playground from one of the back rooms. The principal, Jen, did a lot of the line work on that. I'm coming in kind of in midstream on all of these. So the Edgerton one, she went out and got a couple of bids. I got her the electrical contractor, and I think the total price on that was like $4,700. The Russell Advanced Roofing was the portable in the back that I think, Bill, they're using for remote teaching.
Currently, it's for remote teaching. It's been our flex lab for a while, but our remote teachers are currently in there now.
And that's a shingle roof, and it's coming up. I did make them get a second bid for that. I think that Russell bid from Advanced Roofing was $5,500. The second one came in at like $13,200, which was kind of an eye opener for us. So there is, talking with Micah when I first came aboard, there was some talk about, well, there wasn't some talk, there's some fire doors at 3 elementary schools that we committed to replacing them actually during this calendar year, which is not going to happen.
Actually, we committed to doing it last year, and it didn't happen.
Last year.
And so the fire inspector said, look, we've been telling you about this for 15 years. You need to make it happen. And so it's happening.
So I actually talked with the fire inspectors when we did the Kalispell Middle School walk right before Thanksgiving or during Thanksgiving break, which was another eye opener for me. And they asked me 3 times, 3 of the 4 guys asked me about those fire doors. Campus Creek was they came in at $68,000, I believe,
yep,
for 4 sets of doors at 3 schools. We asked for another bid. Swank came in at $128,000 and some change, $127,000 change. And then I'm not so up on the KMS paging system, but I did listen to the Jason talk about it, and there was 2 different bids. One was for an analog system, which overlaps into a digital system. We would buy the clocks. There's some other clocks on there. They want to go with the $6,149 as opposed to the $20,000 one. And then I think they said they could buy these clocks for like $33 a piece as opposed to $100 a piece from a vendor, Northwest or whoever it was, Systems Northwest. So just making everybody do their legwork on it, getting multiple bids. That's where we're at.
And the fire doors came in $7,000 cheaper than the last time.
And the issue with the fire doors too, just so you guys know, is we're on it. If we don't, the material's going to be an issue if we don't move on it. It might push us back even further because it gets pretty hard to find stuff like that right now. And that includes all the electrical, all the low voltage. It's all, Michael wanted all in one package. That's before I got here and got. And it is. We looked at it. It's all, everything is done. There shouldn't be one change. There better not be a change order.
Welcome to Kalispell.
Okay, any questions for the 4 elementary projects that together total $84,290?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Okay, elementary entertain an elementary only motion to approve the 4 contracts for $84,290.
Move we approve elementary only, contract.
Dan made the motion, Kim made the second. And any further discussion?
I just have one comment, Jack.
Okay.
I just want to say thanks to Greg for double checking everything and, making people do their due diligence so that we're not getting, overcharged for things. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Any comments from Amy or Lance?
None for me.
No, thanks.
Okay, elementary motion, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Lance says aye.
Elementary motion unanimously passed. Okay, now we're on to, there's no district-wide contracts to approve, so now we're on to policy.
Yep. So, we've had some conversations around public comment and being in a new place with online commentary and, you know, when you're in a controlled setting of a board meeting and you can tell someone 3 minutes or whatever, or as an agenda item comes up, there's an opportunity for the public to comment. But once we've moved past that, there's no more comment. Once the board starts the deliberations, you've heard the input from the community. And policy 14, so we had the discussion about, well, where does that fit? If someone just has this running commentary going online, do we acknowledge it as a board, and do we record that in the minutes? Reached out to Deborah Silk at MTSBA. This is one of the services they provide, and they say, no, you do not have to do that. There is an appropriate time and place for public comment within the structure of a board meeting. So Beth and I talked a little bit about it, and this is just for discussion right now. I think there would have been more discussion at the policy committee meeting. Diane and I ran out of things to talk about. And really what we looked at was trying to address the online comment and whether or not it gets included in the record, and whether or not, so if someone were to make a comment right now about the elementary contract that we just talked about, we would ignore that from an online perspective. So just thought maybe we needed to do a little updating on that. We don't have to, we know, but I think with some of the comments that came out of the public last time about whether or not we were going to be recording stuff, I thought it was good to provide some clarity on that. So open to discussion, and we can bring this forward, you know, at the next board meeting to do our 3 readings.
See, for me, the significant part, and that's why we've spent the time to say, well, we'll wait 30 seconds or a minute before we close public comment on things. We haven't had, since the initial public comment on general things that are under our jurisdiction, we haven't had any during this because we haven't had anything controversial enough that would necessarily warrant public comment. And that's still at the discretion of the chair to make that decision. But I think it's important to recognize that we do have to have a beginning time and sufficient time for somebody to type in a public comment if they have one after we listen to the public comment that is provided on site versus remote. I don't know how to word that, but that's just the way our procedure should probably fashion itself.
So after we make a motion and we say, is there further discussion, that would also, though, be a time that somebody online could make a comment that would go in, or no?
No, so we would have a presentation, we would invite public comment, we would then go to our deliberations, okay. And then after our deliberations, when a motion is made, well, technically, we should have a presentation, public comment, a motion, deliberation, and then a vote. But once the public comment, whether it's on-site or remote, is completed, then we would start our deliberations.
So will we will we add in asking for public comment more?
Only on things that are of a significant issue.
Okay.
And that's either can be determined by the chair or determined by us as a group.
And what if somebody said, if they message to Kyra, I have a comment on the 9th thing, can I make a comment on the 9th issue? Is that an option, or?
Oh, like agenda item number
Yeah.
such and such.
Mm-hmm.
We need to accept something like that, yes.
Okay.
And yes, that would be part of a process, yes.
So will it look different than it looks, or it's just more officially in the policy?
Fundamentally, everything remains the same, but it addresses the running commentary from someone who maybe is disgruntled with a decision of the board. And we don't have to read those, the board chair does not have to recognize the comment, does not have to, and they don't have to be included in the minutes.
Okay.
So we're just trying to make sure that the way we deal with online type commentary is similar to the way we deal with in-person commentary.
Yes.
So this is just regularizing it so that it's
And like
similar.
Jack did tonight, where he said, I'm gonna give 30 seconds
Right.
to see if there's anybody, and
So we wouldn't accept running commentary from
Right.
somebody on site. We should not accept running commentary from somebody online.
The thing is, so we have a similar process for online commenters and in-person.
The most important part is having this conversation to gain an understanding. Because the online part is so new, we just have to figure out, okay, what do we do online? How do we handle online? Do we do it identical, similar, or different than on-site? And it should be almost the same as much as possible. So the design is to how do we come up with the wording to demonstrate to the public the considerations that we have.
So, well, I absolutely don't think we should have that ongoing running commentary. I do think it's important, and I don't think this is not doing it, but maybe additionally, to make sure that we continue to do, or even add in things that make sure that people don't, I know legally we are doing it all, but I do think that the perception is important, the perception that we are listening and that we are making the room for people to make these comments. I mean, there isn't a very clear understanding of the way the process works. One of the things that happens is what happened today with public comment, when people will ask a question. And I have had to tell a lot of people, we aren't not answering your question because we don't care about it. We aren't answering your question because that is not in our agenda. That's not what we can do. And so just to make sure that as we don't make room for ongoing public comment, that isn't the stuff that we need not in there, to make sure that we are also making room for people that do want to follow the process.
One thing that's significant with the public comment at the beginning of a meeting, the public comment that's invited at the beginning of the meeting is for items that are not on the agenda, but within our jurisdiction. The reason why we can't discuss those is because they're not on the agenda.
Right.
We cannot deliberate on those. We can say, address it with Micah, and then Micah or the superintendent or whomever it should be, address it with the principal, and then see how it may work through a process to return to the board if necessary. So the key part there at the beginning is that people may, regardless of how we write it in the policy or how we advertise it, people aren't going to completely understand that. They expect us to respond to something.
Exactly.
But we cannot discuss, deliberate anything that's not on the agenda. And so that's how we need to separate non-agenda item public comment to agenda item public comment.
Yeah.
I get that, but I don't get the impression that the public always gets that, and so I just don't
Right.
want that same
Within the meeting,
misunderstanding
yeah.
to grow as we start to have more online.
Well, and so there's really two policies in, in, our board policy, 1441 and then 1420F, which really is the notice regarding public comment. The first section deals with making public comment about something that is not on the agenda. And like Jack said, if it's a question, like the student asked a question, are we going to still require a mask? Public comment received.
Right.
We're not discussing that. And then further down on this, I think it's in the second to the last paragraph, it talks specifically about the public has a right to comment on an item that is specifically listed on the agenda. They're permitted to do so when the item comes up for discussion and action, and the board chair will indicate when that time is appropriate. So those two policies cover public comment. 1441 is the one that I think specifically addresses what will be recognized by the board chair and what will be recorded in the minutes.
So I think what Ursula's saying is we just have to be more careful that when we get to the point where citizens are permitted to make that comment, that we actually ask, that we actually make sure we take that moment and say, this is the moment for public comment on agenda item B asked, are there any public comments? No, let's move on.
And to that end, 1420F is on that table where people sign in and pick up an agenda. I put it on every board meeting. It's there for the public to see, read, and follow.
Thank you.
So let me ask this question. Does anybody see anything on the agenda that we should have maybe allowed the public to comment on that we have taken action on so far?
Is it only action items typically?
Yes.
It's any item on the agenda.
Well, it could be any item, but typically it's an action item. So if you were to look at the agenda right now, is there anything, any agenda items that we should have asked the public for comment on that we didn't? Because as the chair, I thought our deliberations were sufficient to cover all the items that we were deliberating on.
We're not really the ones to make that decision. It's the public who would determine an agenda item, that they have some.
No, our policy says at the discretion of the chair, public comment can be taken.
How would they communicate to you that they have a comment for this particular agenda item?
Well, they could do it at the very beginning of the meeting when you have public comment. They could say, I'd like to comment on this item.
But they might not realize they had a comment until after the presentation.
We'll make sure we word it that way for them to understand that.
And I think generally speaking, having attended many a board meeting over the years, that, most of the business of the board is pretty mundane. Like, I don't really see anybody wanting to comment on the dues increase for MTSBA. Someone might, and which would be their right to make a comment at that point on that. When it comes to more contentious items, because of how many people are in the room, who wants to have an opportunity, and we have always allowed that opportunity and kind of call it gut instinct on that. So I feel like everything that we're doing as a board, we're running operationally, in terms of educating the public on when it's appropriate or when it's not. I think that's something that, potentially could be addressed. But I think when people have something to say, they generally know that they have a right to say it. It's just a matter of that online piece that I wanted to try and address from several meetings ago that came up a meeting later.
So 1441, if you read lines 9 through 12, it says to allow fair and orderly expression of public comments, the board will permit public participation through oral or written comments. We're extending that online during the public comment section of the board agenda and prior to the final decision of matters of significant interest to the public. So that doesn't mean every single item. And that significant interest is usually reserved for the board chair unless another trustee thinks that we should be inviting public comment on that particular item.
I wonder, at the beginning of our agenda that we have online and that we have in person, it talks about masks, and then there's part that talks about public comment in the agenda. I mean, we could put the policy there instead of like, you know, like you could put the policy there that just says it. I would not want us to ask like, have another thing we ask every single time. I mean, we go through all this process already, but I mean, like Michael was saying, like, to educate the public, like, if there's some way to put it out there, like, along with public comment, this is kind of the full public comment paragraph.
And I would say that as a board, we probably operate a little bit loose with public comment, because when you actually read 1420F, they're actually supposed to sign in, identify what they want to comment on. That's supposed to be submitted to the board chair, who would then recognize and call on those individuals. So we've I wouldn't say loose, casual is probably a better word. But I think, you know, in terms of wanting our public to be informed and to make the comment that they want to make, the opportunity is provided on a fairly regular basis.
So if they were commenting online, they would need to be less casual. They would need to probably say at the very beginning, I would like to comment on this when the time comes.
So, for example, I could open the floor right now to public comment on our policy on public comment.
Right?
And what I am going to do is there anybody in the public that has any comments to make on public comment? Amy, do you have any comments first?
I do. And Jack, one thing that you said that bothers me, public comment, I don't think should be at the discretion of the board chair. The public has the right to comment on any agenda item. So that bothers me if we have that language in there. But I think piggybacking on what Ursula is saying, it seems to me, I think we are doing everything properly, because there is not a time that I've ever seen where Lance has not allowed public comment. But I think we have to be real careful thinking that we control when the public is able to comment on an agenda item. So that's just something that we could look at for another agenda. And for Ursula, what I was going to say is, it seems like, I know Lance, sorry, I missed the first couple minutes of the meeting, so I don't know what you said, Jack, but for Lance, he usually tells people that this is the time to take comments and we can't, you know, answer questions but maybe that is something that we could slow down and maybe strengthen a little bit, like Ursula's saying, so the public understands we can't respond to your questions. Please, refer your questions to Micah. We could put it on the agenda. We could probably improve our explanation to the public. But I think overall we're doing a great job. Thanks.
Line 14 of policy 1440-1 that's in place says the chairperson may control such comments to ensure an orderly progression of the meeting in the manner described in policy 1420. F.
So that's where I think where you can institute time limits, where we limit it to 3 minutes. Or I think that's what that's referring to, because that's really addressing that public comment section on the agenda, not on a specific agenda item. So that's where I think that's where the intent of that language lies, is that as a board chair, you get to control, like if you have 100 people show up and you say everybody has 5 minutes, you're going, okay, that's 500 minutes. So we still want to have an orderly progression. Scott's calling it quits.
No, you do as a board have the right to limit.
Yes.
I mean,
for the orderly progression of the meeting, you can't just go on.
Filibusters, and there's people that like getting in the way of things, and they will find another way to do it if you don't include some rules. And it is not to keep people out and keep their opinions out. It is to get through a meeting.
Yes.
So yes, boards have the right.
So all I wanted to do was address the online comment.
I know. Well, in regards to the online comment, similarly to how we have a 3-minute limit to what people can say, I can see a situation where somebody could paste an entire encyclopedia article into their public comment online. So I don't know how we would address that, or if we even come up, but it's a potentially kind of,
3 minutes is approximately 150 words. We could say, not over 200 words.
Yeah. I think if someone wanted to, in that type of situation, maybe you would ask them to actually turn on their microphone and make a public comment as opposed to pasting Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a potential for that, but I think the board chair can address that if it comes up, so.
But there is now a public comment from Lynn Ryder. Lynn, the floor is yours.
Hey, Lynn, you're unmuted.
Jack, I was just being highly amused over here about the public comment conversation that's happening. So, and I just wanted to let you know, if you wanted a public comment, I would give you a public comment.
Thank you, Lynn.
You are welcome.
Yep. Okay, so this is, so just something for discussion. If the board would like to entertain this, I would certainly be willing to run the proposed changes through MTSBA and say, is this appropriate? Is it necessary? And if we need to, we can bring it forward for some readings. Sound good?
Well, this is policy reading number, so you're not considering this policy reading number?
No, this is information.
Because we've just, okay, good. We have just tapped the potential of this whole discussion. So moving on, I also brought up policy 1513. You can just go into the policy discussion, they're all together, which talks about the management rights of the board. And, we actually had a really appropriate question tonight. What is going to happen with the mask mandate? If the leadership at the state level says no more mask policy? And line number 6, so your management rights are actually stated in the Constitution, Montana Constitution, as well as in Montana Code, as well as in Administrative Rules of Montana. And number 6 says, take whatever actions may be necessary to carry out the mission of the district in situations of emergency. So that can be a lot of different things. And at the beginning of this year, when we first started talking mask policy, the board approved a mask policy prior to it being mandated by the governor. So now we have a situation, and I have heard from parents, I have heard from staff members, you heard from a student tonight asking the question, what is going to happen? And I think it's something that, come January 4th, we're going to need to be prepared to talk about and re-look at as a board. I will say right now that my recommendation is that we continue as long as there is a pandemic going on and we do not have our health officials telling us to do otherwise. But again, that's just my recommendation to you. The board gets to make that decision, but know that it is on. People are on high alert right now, relative to that discussion. And so I included that, and it also in some ways references policy 1906 that we had talked about. And one of the other items that's going to come up in January is whether or not to continue with the early releases. Cali and I have spent way too many hours talking about aggregate hours and minutes and looking and seeing what, are we within the statute and within the policies that we have adopted for meeting the definition of aggregate hours. And the potential for an issue is relative to students who are not proficient. So we get our funding based on a per student basis. Anybody who meets the aggregate hours requirement, you get full funding for. If you don't have the aggregate hours and you have kids that are not proficient, they take money away from you, from your district. And this happened in Belgrade a few years ago. And so we're getting ready to talk about what's going to happen second semester with early releases, have a survey. I don't think it'll be as long as Cali's, but to parents and to staff about the early releases. But we may have to come back and address what happens with students during that 2-hour window. That we may need to say that there has to be some form of asynchronous instruction that needs to occur. So if I'm a teacher, I could say, hey, make sure you read your notes tonight. Make sure you read a chapter in your book, do this worksheet, something that says, even though it's teacher-led, but not it's teacher-directed, but student-led. So it's just one of those things that's kind of in the back of my mind about, we want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a situation where we don't have the aggregate hour piece covered. When I talked to Lance Melton at MTSBA, he says, nope, you're golden, you're fine. And then I talked to my AA superintendent counterparts, and they're like, I don't know, OPI might interpret it differently. So there's some things that we want to just make sure that we've, again, crossed our T's and dotted our I's with on that. So that's why I included those as part of the discussion for tonight. And
Michael?
Yeah, well.
Do you expect that MTSBA is going to address the possible mask change policy? What can they take on?
I don't know. I have not heard or seen anything on that. Tonight Sean referenced a letter that was written by the Northwest Mass Group, so that includes me and nearly every school in the valley, and we sent an email or a letter to Governor Gianforte and his COVID response team and said, please consider keeping the mask mandate in place for schools. Look at our data, look at what we're doing. It's working. Please don't mess with that, because on the downside of this is if the mask mandate goes away, I think we're going to have some real challenges with our employees who we're saying right now, hey, we think you need hazard pay because we're putting you in a situation where you're required to come to work. We're putting you at risk. And then we take the mask away for the kids. I mean, we can still make it, for the adults or whatever, but I think there's just some real challenges there with the potential for what could happen.
Maybe we should, because what would precipitate things would be lawsuits against us. That's the only tool available to the parents.
Liability.
So the question is, what kind of discussions do we have with our insurance carrier about item number 6 and 1906 because of our authority to do that, and to what degree will they be able to defend us? So when can we start those discussions?
January 4th.
So we put our masks, the board voted to have masks in the schools before the governor had a school statewide mask mandate.
Yep.
So we're under that rule, even if he takes it, unless we change it, of course. But what concerns me more than his removal of the mask mandate, because I think at least until we revote, that's in place already, is the removal of the state of emergency, which, are we under both a state of emergency and a county state of emergency? And which one is this passing of the, lowering of the hours of contact based on?
So the board actually has the authority to declare your own emergency, and you actually did in policy 1907.
Okay.
So I included that one as well, if you want to just scroll down a little bit, Callie. The Board of Trustees is authorized to declare that a state of emergency exists within the community. A declaration issued by the Board of Trustees is distinct from any declaration in effect or previously issued by local, state, or federal authorities. So when we went through and adopted all these 1900 series policies, I poured through them. I tried to understand them and make sure that the ones that we adopted, which were most of them, we were covered from beginning to end, from the fact that we have it, with this emergency, we can adopt a policy after one reading. Doesn't matter which policy it is. The 1900 series, we adopted after one reading. Some of the other ones that we've gone through all three readings on them. So everything that we've done at this point, based on the advice of legal counsel, is we're on par, we're doing the right things. Procedurally, I think the question exists, is the mask mandate that was adopted prior to the governor making it still in effect? I don't, you know, if the new governor says, yeah, no emergency, and, you know, at your will to wear a mask.
Did we put an expiration date on that?
It's just in our phases, and it was all tied to the governor's phases.
Yeah.
So if that goes away, is that so? I think it would be prudent to come back and revisit that if there's a change with the governor's order.
If the governor's mandate doesn't exist anymore, can we mandate masks for employees and students, or that's where we like open ourselves up?
Yes.
We would have to declare an emergency.
Okay.
We already have an emergency, and that policy is in effect until.
It's not just a recommendation though, like we can make it a rule.
Yeah. So the board has already declared an emergency, regardless of whatever happens with the governor or the legislature or anything else. We are currently in until the board rescinds that policy.
Oh, okay.
And there's some specific rules on how that, and that's covered in 1901, I believe. I'm getting pretty good at these, but to go back to the kind of the question you were asking, it comes back to those managerial rights.
Mm-hmm.
Take whatever actions may be necessary to carry out the missions of the district in situations of emergency. If you've declared there's an emergency that exists within our community, and you say that everybody's wearing 3 masks, I mean, that's the extent of the power of the board as elected officials to do that. You know, and as you kind of play this out, so we come back and revisit it because the governor said we don't have to. You're going to probably have some parents here that are going to say, governor says we don't have to, we don't have to, we don't have to. Actually, when it's embedded in the Constitution and the law, that you have the ability to make those decisions as a board.
And so where do we open ourselves up for like Jack was saying, there's a potential for lawsuits, like people may.
Well, there's a potential for lawsuit on either side of it.
There's always,
you take the mask off, someone gets COVID, your fault, I'm gonna, you know, it's just someone's waiting.
It's not necessarily an increased potential, it's just always a potential.
Correct.
Okay.
And all I'm suggesting is that we get talking to the insurance company right now, because could that be inevitable, so be prepared to defend us.
Okay.
But they're gonna take a position, they're gonna try and figure out, can we legally do it? And we have to tell them, this is our understanding of the laws. And so we're expecting you to defend us on this, absent, or less any deductibles that we have, but just be prepared for this. And we've got to mentally be prepared to say, yep, we're going to get lawsuits, and we'll be distracted with that, as well as try to run a school district.
And a lot of public comment, essentially.
A lot of public comment. Online and in person.
Could I just make the comment too, though, that if we lose the support of the governor for the masks, we will in all likelihood have the support of the federal government to mask and the CDC, and we use the Montana pediatricians. So I think there's going to be a lot of support for continuing masks, even if we lose the governors.
Yes.
The Montana governor is sworn in before the federal presidency.
January 4th.
Just so you're aware, Amy. There's a 3-week gap there, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
And if I had to predict with a lot of the other things that happened along the way as we moved through this whole pandemic from, March till now, there was a lot of deferring to local control. So that final layer of local control from a school district perspective rests with this group.
Okay, any further discussion on these policy, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, Mike, and move that, policy 1441 forward and get, further guidance from MTS and bring it back to us for a second reading, or first reading.
Okay. Second.
Well, no, it doesn't.
It wasn't a motion.
It doesn't require a
It sounded
motion.
like, it was just a, it was a, Micah, would you please continue your work with us tonight? Yeah.
It's just continuing an administrative function.
Yeah.
And Mike is really finding out, are we opposed to it, or do we sound like we're supportive of it? Sounds like we're supportive of it, so continue your administrative work. Okay, next item is Sue Corrigan talking about MTSB and the legislature.
Okay, so pretty exciting times right now, getting ready for this next legislative session, and actually in participating in the MTSBA directors meetings, we've had very similar discussions. And first of all, I would encourage everybody here to participate in the MTSBA training. There's one Thursday at noon. They are very respectful of your time. When they say an hour, they mean an hour, and it's a solid hour of information. And this week it is on the history of school finance. I think maybe Jack should be a guest speaker at this. But it's a really nice background coming into this legislative session. I mentioned that things don't look quite as dire as we originally thought after the election. I was ready to move out of Montana. You know, I just thought it was going to be awful. But the leadership that has been elected for the legislature is very moderate Republicans. Actually, MTSBA, the wording you hear all the time is cautiously optimistic. And MTSBA is in a very unique situation because they are all registered lobbyists, which none of us are, but they have to walk a fine line, Will, when you ask about will they come out on a mask mandate or a policy on that. They have to walk a fine line because they have to work with the incoming administration and still support us. So it's very interesting how they deal with things, but the more I talk with them and deal with them, the more impressed I am with them. They do their legwork. We're still not sure if the legislature will be meeting in person or remotely. They're thinking it will be a hybrid system. The final decision will be made with the Rules Committee, which is December 16th. With a hybrid system, some legislators will be remote, some will be in person, but they are really going to be relying on grassroots advocacy. And guess what? That's us. We're locally elected officials, and we hold a lot of clout. What I would like to do, and since we have to have a special board meeting, it sounds like, this is, I think, a great opportunity to invite our local legislators to come and have a discussion with us. They've got some tenets that they are pushing for this year in the legislature. You know, we've all heard about the flat budgets, and anything with an appropriations is probably, you know, not going to get a whole lot of support. But there is some things that should really concern us, and some things that we should be very proud of in talking about aggregate hours, masks. We have a lot of flexibility as a local school board, and we need to show that. We need to, you know, stress what we're good at. Well, we also need to talk about some of the challenges that we have. One of the big challenges we're going to have is the push towards privatization of education. charter schools. Well, guess what? It's a fancy title. You know, we're technically, we have a couple charter schools in District 5 right now. I think we just don't have the title for it. But we have a lot of flexibility to do things different. One of the big things MTSBA is pushing for in the legislature this time is alternative certification, especially for, you know, your career and tech ed programs. It's for alternative, what are they calling it like that? The internships and apprenticeships as part of a school program. There's a lot of things we could do, and
Transformational learning.
The what?
Transformational learning.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yep.
But it's exciting, the things that we can do if we choose to. It's a lot of things we're already doing. It's just, you know, kind of rebranding it. But what I would like to see is if there is interest in having a discussion with our local legislators, inviting them in. If we have to have a special board meeting, you know, to talk about hazard pay, we could invite the legislators for part of that meeting. I don't know. Any interest? I mean, maybe there is no interest in.
I would love to talk to them. I don't know that they should be there when we're having the conversation about how to make sure we spend the money.
No. No, and I agree, you know.
What if we made this a special board, you know, either like our meeting with the insurance, you know, I mean, we can make just a special time to have the board meet with the legislature too. It doesn't have to be part of a board meeting.
No, except we have the open meetings law to do.
Right, no, but I'm saying we can just declare a special board meeting just for the purpose of meeting with them.
Yes, absolutely, we could.
We could have a one after another even.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
But we kind of have to hurry, right?
Exactly. I mean, they convene January 4th.
It could be on the same day, but it could be two different
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
And they have some dates, some meetings they're dealing with too. You know, I've talked to a couple of them when it would be a good time or when it wouldn't.
In some prior years, it's been a meet and greet sort of thing.
Yes.
Not only with board members, but encouraging like the certified and classified unions to participate in it too. Maybe any school district personnel that are interested to carry on a conversation with them. And it hasn't, it seemed like there was one, I guess I don't remember where they were held now. I'm confused about a couple of different things. But,
the last session, I think Lance said that they had one last session.
but I don't remember where we physically had it at.
Yeah.
I don't think it was in a school building.
Oh.
Lance, are you still on?
It was at FDCC.
It was at FCC?
Where'd we have a greet and meet? Okay.
So is there a general interest? I mean, I'm happy to pursue this with Beth's help. To pursue a meet and greet?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
are we limited on the number of people you can have? Is it like 25?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Except
Yeah.
if we were to do it at a school,
At a school, then you don't have to say.
then it doesn't necessarily apply.
Okay.
But I think you would want to be careful
Yeah.
in how many. I would try to stick to the 25 rule.
Yeah.
Well, it may mean only half of the trustees are there.
Well, and that, you know, would be the other issue, yeah, is getting, because we're definitely going to talk school issues, so we have to be careful with the quorum or make it a, you know, open meeting.
Well, like you were saying, it is nice, like with the MCSBA thing, it's nice to meet online. I mean, everybody's kind of busy this time of year. I mean, the meet and greet in any other year seems like the right solution, but this year, maybe online just is the easier, better way to do it.
Well, you have to remember the representatives are primarily Republicans here, and they'd probably rather meet in person than online. I don't know for sure, I just think that.
Well,
busy, aren't they? Doesn't everybody like to?
What?
And the whole idea is to build this relationship with our legislators. And, I mean, we definitely would have to have an online version of it, but I think we all sit here, why can't we have a discussion with our legislators and if, you know, in this same format? And if we, you know, don't invite everybody and their brother to come, if it's just board and legislators, it's not gonna be that large of a group.
What if we do it from 5 to 6 o'clock on site a week from tonight, and then we have a 6 o'clock special board meeting?
It sounds perfect to me.
yeah, how many legislators are you talking about?
There's something going on with the legislators on the 15th, though.
Is that next Tuesday?
Is that next?
That's Tuesday, right? Isn't that the date? Yeah. I thought because I threw out a few dates to a couple of the legislators, and they all said actually the 16th or 17th work. But
Okay, Thursday.
Well, we would just do it I think doing it from 5 to 6 would be a better time than any other time.
Yeah.
So either on that Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
And you'll bake cookies, right?
Just like I baked tonight.
So you want to do it on the 16th at 5?
Is that too long to put off the hazard pay discussion?
I think we'll be ready. It's just a matter of the payroll piece, and I think if Lacey has enough advance notice.
Because you're talking about doing them both on the same day. So if the legislator one is on the 16th.
But we can still do the hazard on Tuesday and the legislature on Thursday. I mean, we don't have to do them on the same day.
We could
I'd rather separate the two.
Yeah,
We could do the hazard remote.
right. I thought the hazard was gonna be,
Okay, so
that's gonna be a
the
quick
hazard's
vote.
not moving
Getting all
then.
this stuff?
Right.
I am getting all this.
Okay, so the hazard's not
hazard-
moving.
Hazard remote.
Hazard remote
Tuesday.
on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
You bring the
And then
beverages.
legislators.
I better write it down too.
And then, in one day? Sue, what day did you say the legislators
Yeah.
would like?
6 o'clock Tuesday.
The 16th or the 17th, they said worked best.
Okay.
That's the
So we'll
Wednesday,
leave it up to
Thursday?
you to decide the 16th or the 17th, whether it's a Wednesday or Thursday
Okay.
at 5 p.m.
choir concerts at the high school.
Oh, okay, choir concert's the 17th,
Oh.
so we should do it the 16th,
Okay,
Yeah, not to
from
mention-
5 to 6, and the hazard,
We'll
Is
still
it
do
the day
Tuesday.
remote.
Thursday, the band concert?
Remote.
Okay.
location could either be Glacier High School or it could be right
Is
here.
Michelle still here? Because there's a band concert on Thursday. Whatever.
I'll check with both places and see if they're available.
Well,
I-
between,
Do that right now.
Beth's doing that right
Oh.
now.
Okay.
Beth, can you look and see if there's a band concert?
Yeah, can you check the Flathead High School band concert?
FHS band concert is Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Okay,
Okay.
so as long as we're done here, that's cool.
We'll actually be here for, I will be joining remotely from this room.
This room is not available on Wednesday. It is available on Thursday, but Glacier has a choir concert Thursday,
And what time's that choir concert?
7.
So if we
5 to
did
6.
5 to 6,
Yeah.
would that give time to get to the concert?
That works.
Perfect. Okay. So the 17th, 5 to 6?
Yeah, it sounds like, is Glacier's
Yeah.
Glacier.
room available on Wednesday or Thursday?
I don't know, Jan has access to Glacier's calendar, and I have access to.
The rest of this one was available Thursday.
What's the bigger room?
Thursday, 5 to 6?
This room is the one that's available on Thursday.
Right,
I
it's
don't
available
know
Thursday, 5 to 6.
This one is?
Okay.
Okay, well, let's just have it here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be here.
So at least three of us can walk, right?
What?
Are you for that Glacier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of a big if though, right, if they can make it.
Yeah, you've got to check
Yeah.
this down. That's
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just having a cookie party.
Well, and there might only be 2 or 3 legislators that are willing to show up.
I know. And I mean, on my list will not just be well, it will be Flathead, but like Dave Fern is up in Whitefish.
Well, everybody in Flathead County.
Yeah, because, I mean, we've really got some legislators who have key
roles in the legislature, key leadership roles. So we could really push for quality public education as it states in the Montana Constitution, Article 10. Okay, I will check on that. Beth will help me.
You know, to avoid the need to identify it as a meeting, if we, well, and maybe we still need to, Mike can get clarification from NTSB. Would there be any benefit to invite any of the trustees from the partner school districts to this?
The fears were getting huge.
And we definitely could.
But we still have to limit it to 25, have some kind of limitation on the number of people.
And that's the danger, I think.
Well, without social distancing is the 25 rule. So this room, you know, we've set it up for 50.
Is there a concern that if the legislators would be willing to wear a mask?
Coming into a school building, of course they have to.
Okay,
And
I just wondered if you had a concern about that.
They'll do it.
We had one that, county commissioner that came to a meeting that didn't, and we asked him to, and he said he would.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think they'll do it. Okay, great. Cool.
So are we inviting?
So will you send that in the, in that invite that you make up for them, mask required?
Yes, yeah, we can do that. The other thing I just wanted to mention very, very quickly, there is a group of community members around the state, all from AA schools, that are advocating for public education. It's a very dynamic group of individuals, Great Falls, Billings, Bozeman, I think Butte's in there. My husband will probably divorce me if I say yes to one more thing. So if anybody here is interested in being part of this advocacy group, please let me know and I will get you their contact information. They meet remotely, and I don't really know what their plans are, but there's some very dynamic people involved with this group. And I've actually talked Dorothy Drury into doing it, and Danielle Kaufman, if you know her, she's a local attorney with kids in the district. So we've at least had 2 people from here on there. Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
Lucky fundraiser.
Now we're on to the consent agenda, where we approve as a group the claims and tuition students and bus driver certifications. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Made by
Seconded.
Scott and seconded by Rebecca. Any
public comment?
Any discussion?
Is it justifiable homicide to kill Micah?
Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Lance?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we are on to trustee reports. We'll start with Mark.
I went to an event this weekend. A friend of ours requested we go watch the middle school girls run a 5K. It was really cool, and it was cold. I went to it. It was dead heat there, and I stood around and I talked to people, and I did something this weekend.
Do you have any idea what the group was and what they do?
Yes, but I did something this weekend. I was really happy about that. No, it was a fundraiser, and Beth will tell you more.
It's a program called Girls on the Run. At our middle school, we have a team. There are 8 girls, and these are girls
running, the goal is the camaraderie and the mentorship and the things that they discuss while they're running. So they talk about life lessons and skills and, things like that. And it seems that some of the girls involved is really something that they need, emotionally. And so anyway, it was a really cool program, and all the girls finished. Parents with their tournament was very cool. And of course, Mark wants to know when he could leave as soon as he got there.
No, that is not.
Should we let the record show that Mark is really lucky to be married to Bethany?
You guys know where you're at.
The record should show that.
The record does show that.
Diane,
That's all I got.
Getting wrong.
Diane, do you have any
I
comments?
cannot top that.
Sue?
I just want to encourage you all to make a donation to the Kalispell Education Foundation. They're having their fund drive right now, and, yeah, so just do it.
Thank you. Kim?
It was very entertaining tonight.
So I have nothing else to add.
Ursula?
My son participated in the speech and debate tournament, which was the first remote speech and debate tournament. And I asked him about how it went, and generally it went well, but, you know, the thing that he said is, of course, we're all nervous. It's our first tournament. But the people who were the very most nervous and stressed out were the IT people. So Tyra, thank you to you, and thank you to all the IT people. And it really is just another example of how much above and beyond all of the staff are going to give these kids these opportunities. And I just want to keep acknowledging as much as possible how much gratitude I have and the students have that they are able to be here and do this. And it's the custodians, and it's the superintendent, and it's the teachers and the subs, and that speech and debate tournament, it was definitely the IT people. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I also just want to say that I'm very impressed with the job that everybody's doing here, that we've managed to stay open, hopefully up till winter break, if not beyond. And just every interaction is just so impressive. It's incredible what a massive talent we've assembled in these buildings.
Thank you. Will?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Scott?
I'm concerned with Kim's
I know, that's my upper line.
We laughed a lot today.
That's it.
I have nothing to report. I'm not gonna break my record. Cali? Or should we go to Bill first?
Yeah, well, Amy.
Oh, Amy, I'm sorry. We've got people online.
Nothing to report, but I did want to make a suggestion for the meet and greet with the legislatures. I know how much I enjoy the presentations and learning. You know, I enjoyed Michelle's. I just enjoyed the elementary. And I'm just wondering if we could, I hate to ask, you know, anyone to do anything extra, but if we could have some presentations for them, I think that would be a great focus of like how this school is managing to stay open. It's just exceptional. And I think the legislatures, it will be a point of pride when they go back. And I just think that might be something to consider for that meet and greet.
Good idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
It'll
Lance,
be
Is there
structured.
a motion to nominate Bill?
Yeah. Wellness program.
Lance, do you have any comments?
Being in
Did
person.
nobody go to Linderman to, or?
Oh.
That's funny, Lance. We like it better when you're stuck in a box. Oh, God.
Whatever you said, Lance, we're gonna have to guess at.
In person is so much better.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving on to Bill. Do you have any thoughts?
I have no further thoughts this evening.
Callie?
No thoughts whatsoever.
Or comments?
Or comment.
Micah?
I got about a 20-pager here that I'm going to shelve for now. No additional reports, just, again, grateful for the board and the trustees for all the work that you're doing. This is an important time for our district, and just I hear all the time, like, who do I thank for early release days? And I keep